The legend tells that the child of day and night, representing the two forces that determine the survival of humanity, both are dreadful and contemptuous of each other. Their war has been going on since ancient times, affecting humans. Since then, humans have been in a long period of suffering and conflict that continues to this day. Returning to the civilized era, the scene is filled with smoke and dust, evil villains indulging in hell. Jafar grinned maliciously, taking on the appearance of a bloodthirsty clown, completely contrasting to the clown we know. Jafar spoke. It's more than paradise here. Police have surrounded the bank on all sides, a horrific and dramatic gunfight, a mad highway heading towards the show at heaven. Jafar stood on a giant balloon shouting, "Welcome to Jafar's show." Someone screamed in horror. Everyone run. As they finished speaking, the giant balloon named Jafar's death ball plummeted to the ground, exploding like a bomb, flames bursting out fiercely. Jafar emerged from the smoke, posing proudly, gleeful with his destructive game. Well shot. That's exactly what we want. A police officer pointed a gun at Jafar. His hand trembling, Jafar looked at him disdainfully. He pulled out a mini bomb-shaped detonator. Jafar waved it off. "Wherever I go, there will always be pests like you around. Goodbye, useless man." He then threw the detonator like a bomb and smirked. "Always by your side, my friend." Boom! Everything shattered, including the unlucky police officer. Inside the bank, there were many hostages. Jafar's henchmen were doing outrageous acts. Should we drill a hole in his head, bring out more money? Should we go rob another bank? Ha ha. A school bus rushed to a screeching halt outside the gate. Jafar also noticed it. A voice called out to the robbers. "Kids, it's time to go home. Let's go home." Jafar jumped down. His henchmen also carried the loot out of the bank, counting the money, a lot of money. Jafar grabbed a handful and sniffed it with glee, his eyes gleaming like a hawk about to strike. "The smell I desire, I will use it meaningfully for the horror and fear in Jafar's land." Some of his lower-level hostages were taken, mostly children and women. A black tattooed man banged loudly on the door. "Open up! Open up!" Someone opened the door. The black man scowled as he looked inside. "What are you doing in there?" The young man with covered head replied, "The school bus always opens slowly." But he pointed towards the blonde girl. "Who is she?" The black man grinned lasciviously. "That's the hostage." The covered head person noticed something else. He pointed to the girl in the man's arms. "And who is that?" He answered. "Princess, she's the governor's daughter. Both of them were brought onto the bus like this, got both the wife and daughter. Useful to know." The covered head person watched as the two others, the blonde girl, walked up and knelt down pleading. "Please let the little girl go, please, I beg you." The black man pulled her back and shouted loudly, "Shut up, sit still." The child, frightened, screamed, "Mommy." The robber, enraged, said, "I told you to sit still. If you don't listen, I'll snap you." Then the covered head teenager spoke up, "Hey, you flat-headed idiot." Two dumb guys didn't understand the situation and looked back at the young man with his head covered. He coldly ordered, "Release the kid." His hand moved like lightning, grabbing the robber's face tightly, his eyes shining like a god of death. He tightened his grip while commanding, "Let go." The black man got angry. "What the hell are you doing? Are you losing your mind?" The young man with his head covered responded with a fierce look towards him. A little explanation about the story. In this world, there are people born with special abilities, those who awaken their power and become criminals out of greed, those with the blood of the night known as villains. Jafar aimed his gun to the sky and fired continuously like a madman, shouting, "Let's go back to celebrate BBQ party. I'm coming here." Jafar just grabbed the car door and bang, the sound of shattered glass echoed. The body of the black man flew right next to him. Those who opposed the villains, a different kind of supernatural being. The young man with his head covered dragged along the body of the young man in his suit. With powerful support, he stood tall like a savior. Jafar pointed in surprise, "Who's that?" Covering his head, he finally took off his hat, sneering, "Whoa, I'm here to collect garbage." He represents those of the bloodline of light. They are called Psychers. The main character, Cassian, who plays fire type. Cassian even casually reminded, "It's been a year since I've seen you, Jafar. So nice to see your face again, you miserable wretch." Jafar's face suddenly darkened. "Cassian, why is that dog's name here?" Secretly transmitted over Cassian's earpiece. "What are you doing, you little pea-brain?" He ignored the plan and immediately canceled the earpiece chatter. Cassian spoke up, "Now that all the distractions are gone, let's start the game, shall we?" Jafar became fearful, his face devoid of any blood, his eyes bulging with red veins as he muttered, "Asshole." Cassian only regretted, "You can't even be recycled. I won't leave anyone behind. I'll burn you all to death. You Gan ones." The sky was clear. The sunlight was gentle. People bustling on the street, the news reported. Feedback on the robbery at South Lane Boulevard yesterday is increasing about excessive use of force to subdue criminals. The Human Rights Commission has officially made a recommendation to discipline Lambas, the top psyker Cassian, for his brutal violence. At the Lambas branch office in Washington currently, the mage chiller attribute Kwon, the girl who seems to be Cassian's superior, asked him, "Are you a villain?" Cassian took a deep breath before answering, "Commander, calling me a villain isn't very flattering, is it?" He clearly didn't like it, but the chiller still had to clarify. "So show a little remorse for your actions because you ignored the plan and acted on your own. Jaffer is dead. That's fine, but the public is now turning their guns on us." Cassian couldn't understand, he argued, but that scumbag touched the hostage. Chiller reminded him, "So you should be more careful. Prioritize the safety of the hostage as the top priority. That's the most basic rule." Knowing that, but Cassian waved his hand and replied, "But I am confident that I can safely rescue them." Chiller said sternly, "If you still think of yourself as a psyker, then think and act like one. I'm telling you to think logically and act calmly." It seems that Chiller didn't want to hide the anger in her heart any longer. Her voice sounded bitter in Cassian's ears. "And believing that you are right doesn't make it right. Look at the results. Do you think your actions are any different from those villains?" Cassian also listened reluctantly. He didn't say anything. The Chiller continued, "You are temporarily restricted. You know what will happen if you cause trouble during this time, right?" After a while, Cassian strolled down the hallway muttering, "She's just like the nickname of the witch in the Steel Tower." He couldn't believe it. How did Jeff become close to that woman? "I need to get out of here." Suddenly, the phone rang. He picked it up immediately. Cassian heard on the other end, "Jeff, what's going on? Where are you?" Cassian sounded urgent. He exclaimed in disbelief, "Juliet, but she's in Greece." The scene shifted to Juliet International Airport. The airport was beautiful, with simple buildings by the beautiful seaside, a truly picturesque scene. Someone softly expressed their appreciation. "Thanks to Jeff, I gotta visit this amazing place. It's been so long since I last saw him, 6 months. Cassian sat waiting for his friend, and his face showing boredom. A piece of memory rushed into his mind. At HC Orphanage in the room, a little boy was joyful with his new toys, a T-Rex and a panda bear. "Whoa, cool, they're moving. Look at them moving, super awesome, man." His older brother smiled and replied, "No, these are called action figures. I make them move with my power." The kids were amazed. "Wow, that power, it looked like they're alive, right?" Young Cassian asked, "Are you planning to become a psyker, defeat the bad guys, and appear on TV?" His brother hesitated and answered, "I'm not sure with this ordinary power. I don't know." Cassian encouraged him, "No way, your power is super cool always." It was the second year after I was adopted. Cassian wondered, "That truly is a carefree time in my life. Nostalgic indeed." Cassian kept nibbling on those memories, lost in thought, until the store closed, leaving only him. It was already 7:30. He was late. Sensing something was amiss, he no longer answered, wondering what could be wrong. Jeff suddenly appeared behind him, calling Cassian's name, his bloody appearance indicating something had happened. Cassian quickly turned around, shocked. "Jeff!" His blonde friend clenched his jaw tightly, examining the wounds on his body. Cassian rushed to support him. "What happened to you? It can't be. Did you fight with those villains?" Jeff replied grimly, "I shouldn't have called you here." Cassian didn't understand. "What do you mean?" Jeff handed him a necklace solemnly. "Take this." Cassian was puzzled. "Is that really important? Your condition is really bad." Jeff insisted, "I'm fine," but the necklace, suddenly he vomited blood, terrifying Cassian. Cassian had never seen him like this before. Jeff urgently said, "Cassian, there's no time to explain." He yelled, "You have to leave quickly, or you'll be in danger too." Cassian hesitated. "What are you saying?" But with his instinct, he calmed his friend. "Wait here. I'll call an ambulance." A stranger appeared. Cassian was surprised once again. He emerged from the shadows, his black attire making him blend into the darkness, only his eyes shining brightly like a cat's eyes. Cassian spoke up, "Someone." Jeff suddenly pushed hard, sending Cassian flying. He turned back with a bewildered look on his face. The assassin rushed forward like the wind, his sword slicing through Jeff's neck effortlessly. Jeff fell silent, knowing what had happened, but acting as if nothing had happened. Cassian only saw blood spurt in front of him. His eyes widened in horror. He yelled, "Jeff." In Jeff's fading eyes, Cassian crawled over to his brother's corpse, choked with emotion. The assassin immediately leaped onto the roof to escape. Cassian gritted his teeth, his hatred boiling over. He roared like a wild beast. "Stop right there." Cassian chased after the assassin. The moon rose in the sky where the waves were hitting the shore. Two figures appeared. Cassian, after a long chase, finally caught up to the assassin. Exhausted, he still had asked bitterly, "Son of a bitch, is it personal vendetta or a client's request?" The killer stood silently on the other side, not saying anything. Cassian decided, No matter what, it doesn't matter. I'll burn you to ashes myself. No mistakes. The burner lifted his hat. Only then did he open his mouth. Your rude way of speaking remains the same, Cassian. Angrily, Cassian cursed. So that's it. Why did you do that to Jeff? Jack Khaled replied coldly, I simply dealt with a traitor of the organization. Confused, Cassian asked, what are you talking about? Another person appeared from behind to explain what he said was true. It was a white-haired woman, she revealed. Jeff has killed a teammate. We not only witnessed it, but also have evidence. Lyra, a mage with a cold atmosphere, asserted, and the supreme leader of Lampus has confirmed it too. Jack Khaled spoke again. Cassian, you are also suspected of being a traitor. His eyes sharpened. You will tell us about including your conversation with Jack Collider. The scene suddenly fell silent. Cassian seemed to understand some secret. He regained his composure. Cassian sighed. In over 10 years of operating as a psyker, Jeff has never killed anyone, and you are claiming that he killed his colleague. Lyra advised him. Besides us, there are over 2 high-level psychers there. I hope you don't make any foolish decisions. Jack Khaled growled. If you consider yourself a psyker, then think rationally and act calmly. This is your last warning. Cassian smirked at his fake noble demeanor. Right, you're right. I should behave like a true psyker, rational and calm. Lyra widened her eyes in amazement. Cassian rushed straight towards Jack Khaled like a living torch. He may be sentenced, but I will take your life first. Jack Khaled parried with his sword. A slash across Cassian's dodged his punch. Indeed, Jack Khaled's skills were not to be underestimated. He was knocked back, but then lunged forward, swinging his sword at Cassian's head. His sword gleamed with brilliant energy, his sword technique extremely mystical, bringing Jack Khaled's fame in Lampus. On the other side, Lyra combined her divine punishment, her martial arts fully capable of controlling fire. Cassian, in a frenzy, was oblivious to everything. He faced the extraordinary skills of the 2 heavy assassins head-on. Cassian showed no sign of panic, but suddenly a dark energy shot straight into his ribs. Cassian was hit unexpectedly and fell to the ground. Blood gushed flowing down his thigh. Cassian calmly thought to himself, so, among the other psychers, there's a sniper. Lei yelled, surrender, Cassian. If you continue to resist, the next blow will aim at your head. The fire in Cassian's hand receded, and he smirked. Never. Realizing something was wrong, suddenly, Cassian threw something seemingly hard to chew towards them, shouting, take this, hellfire. The explosion shattered the rocks on the shore near the lighthouse, but it seemed to cause no harm. Cassian cursed and then ran towards the sea. Knowing he couldn't do much at this moment, he swore to himself, I will kill them all. But life is not a dream. Before Cassian could take another step, he was hit by a bullet through his chest. He gasped, feeling nothing. Damn it. Cassian fell into the deep, dark sea, perhaps becoming friends with the fish. The ocean swallowed him into its depths as he struggled to hold on to the last remnants of his sanity. I never imagined I would die so easily. At least I wanted to avenge him. The necklace in his chest, the one Jeff gave him, suddenly glowed, and Cassian disappeared into the depths of the ocean. Inside the men's restroom, someone cursed in confusion. What the hell? He's not breathing. Is he dead? Holy shit. Then someone else's voice rang out, run fast. A young man is immersed in the water. He is the reason why the other young men go crazy. He didn't bother to lift his head. Suddenly his head hit something, causing the water to splash everywhere. This is not a sink, but a toilet, my friends. The boy has a bright, innocent face, wearing a necklace from Jeff around his neck. He looks lost, and the crowd is left in vain. Cassian wonders, where am I? Did I fall from a cliff, and what's wrong with my voice? Cassian looks in the mirror at his strange appearance. He panics as he touches his face. What the hell? How could this be illogical? Why do I look like this? What about my body? Cassian slaps his face repeatedly with water. No, this must be just a dream. Cassian looks up again. Nothing changes. He gasps. What is this situation? A dream? No. Why is this strange thing happening? Suddenly, a shock hits his brain. Memories of this body are returning as if reflecting. The memories of this new body, a weak young man hiding behind his sister's skirt, constantly being bullied. Cassian realizes, now I am in Korea. How did this happen? And what is this strange memory in my head? A voice startled him awake. Awake now, Cassian. He looked around frantically. No one's here. Cassian asked loudly, Who's there? His necklace emitted a golden light, forming a dense stream in front of Cassian. An eerie eye appeared, speaking. My name is Moros, a noble soul from ancient times. In Greek mythology, Moros represents imminent doom and can grant the ability to see one's own death. Cassian frowned, a question forming in his mind, and he inquired, You, what are you exactly just emerging from that necklace? Moros answered, I am not a thing, I am Moros. It glanced wickedly. More importantly, I'm sure you have many questions, asked Cassian. Don't you want to hear my answers? As he was leaving the street, the story seemed less strange, and Cassian asked, So you're saying you brought me back from the realm of the dead? Moros replied, Yes, I've told you that 10 times already. Think about it. You're quite proficient in Korean. Cassian responded, That's because I lived in Korea until I was adopted. The silly thoughts kept bothering him, making him feel annoyed, remembering the moment he fell into the sea. I died and then came back. What does that mean? Moro suddenly reminded, Jeff is the one who entrusted you to me. Right, he did that to protect you. Cassian was surprised. To protect me? Impossible. Then what he said at that time. Cassian sighed wearily. He asked Moros, You said Jeff is looking for something like a broken iron sword, right? According to the Korean's tone, Cassian might have misunderstood Jeff's meaning. It seems Cassian confused between these two words. Moros answered, The sword that destroyed Mark. Then it brought up a picture of Mark. That sword was created a long time ago in the mythological war. Cassian found it strange. How do you know these things? Moros explained, I know because I am a noble spirit. Cassian mocked and Moros replied, If you don't understand, just listen and think. Cassian showed frustration. How can I believe what you're saying based on what grounds? Taking out the phone, it turned out to be Kwon Kang-woo's phone, the Korean name of the body he was possessing. Moros replied, I had to sacrifice half of my power to save you. Cassian found something. I can't believe that either. His eyes widened in shock. The article on the webpage said about him. Fallen hero Cassian is linked to corrupt forces. Recent disclosures suggest that top psyker Cassian Lee has colluded with corrupt authorities and accepted bribes in shady money. Reports about Lampus managed to gather enough evidence to proceed with the arrest, and during the confrontation, Cassian was killed. While another top psyker, Jeff, unfortunately sacrificed during the clash with Cassian, his untimely death is truly heartbreaking. Cassian cursed loudly. Holy shit, they say I killed Jeff. How disgusting that thing on his hand is. Jack Collider, my poor brother. Cassian sighed in vain that it wasn't true. The anger made electricity run everywhere. Lampas, you scoundrels. How dare you accuse me like that instead of protecting the innocent? They try to bring me down. Moros sympathized with his pain. Nos comforted him. Stay calm. Cassian, your current path. You are. Suddenly something shadowed Cassian's face, his eyes changing color like eyes. One yellow, one blue, a strange power running down his spine. Cassian seemed to turn into a madman, an electric surge enveloping him. He shouted, How can they? His hands turned into grotesque demon hands. Cassian suddenly realized something was wrong. What? What is this? Two dark demon arms, what is happening? And so the villain Cassian was born from then on. Damn it, that bastard took so long. The bullying group of Kwon Kang-woo was already waiting in an alley. Stop complaining, it will be here soon. The chubby guy ran frantically from afar. Two young men mocked him. Look at that pig running. The guy with purple hair asked, Hey, chubby, did you check yet? The chubby guy nodded, but couldn't say anything because he was out of breath. Then he reported, There's no one in the toilet. This surprised the two young men greatly. Glasses stepped forward as if not believing what Fat had said. No one is here. Have you checked carefully? Fat nodded vigorously. I didn't see any police or ambulances around. Blonde hair angrily retorted. You said that bastard is dead. That means he can't breathe anymore. You idiot. Glasses recalled the scene earlier. It's impossible. He must have stopped breathing. Purple hair ordered Fat. You can go. Blonde hair refused to give in. We have to figure it out, Dan. Just because of that animal, I had a heart attack. What kind of reaction is this? Purple hair calmly took out a yogurt bottle to drink, encouraging his two friends. It's okay. That's enough because that dickhead didn't die. It's also good. Blonde hair was surprised. So what are you going to do with him? Purple hair finished eating his favorite snack. What do you think? I'll bring him down a notch in life again. At the school, on the rooftop, Cassian pulled Moros up here to breathe some fresh air. Moros wondered. So you come up to the rooftop to avoid being seen. Good guess, Cassian. Cassian remembered the chilling moment when he climbed the wall earlier. Stop, don't say anything. He repeated the unanswered question to Moros. Explain why I have become a villain. Moros chuckled slightly. Your nature is because you survived when you were supposed to die. The balance of fate has been skewed. Initially, the owner of your body was destined to survive and become a villain in the future. In reality, a potential disaster of a villain. Upon hearing this, Cassian exclaimed, Wait, a disaster? He was horrified. Could Cassian believe it? You're saying that because I came back to life, I inherited his damn fate. Moros nodded in response. Exactly. Cassian seemed somewhat pleased with this part. I used to be a top psyker, now I'm a villain, huh? Looking at his gruesome hand and being a disaster villain, Cassian punched a hole in the neighboring restaurant wall. Damn it. Fate mocked him, driving him crazy. Cassian shouted, "Why? Why did you bring me back?" Moros explained, "Cassian, even if it's difficult, you need to calm down." Cassian cut him off. "Shut off." Moros wouldn't keep silent, reminding him, "You probably already know evildoers tend to have their rationality overpowered by strong desires. Right now, you can definitely sense it from within, the malice swirling within yourself." Cassian seemed to realize something. Moros continued, "At that moment, I was still able to control it. But because your anger is growing larger, the malice may lose control." And then Cassian once again blocked his throat. "Stop. That's enough." Cassian held his head in pain. "A villain, I wish that I..." Resentful, ironic, humiliated, emotions tangled like a mess of unknittable yarn. Moros softly spoke a sentence, "You must live. If Jeff were here, he would tell you the same." Cassian yelled at him again. Moros gently reminded, "Before we met, Jeff told me that he regretted involving you in this, even though he knew that death was very close. He had no intention of surviving. Instead, he kept that sole chance of survival and left it to you, so don't let his choice go to waste." The explanation of that mindset made Cassian awakens. He laughed coldly. Moros spoke again. "Cassian, you need to stay calm like you are doing right now." Cassian appeared annoyed. "Don't give me orders anymore, too talkative." Moros replied, "So you don't want to return to being a human again?" Cassian looked at his rough black hands and nodded. "I will do it." A moment later, he asked Moros, "Hey kid, what exactly are you?" Moros corrected him, "No, hey kid, I am Moros, a noble spirit." Cassian added, "Don't boast to me about that noble spirit." Moros asked him, "Are you interested?" Cassian nodded, "Yes, if you are strong enough to come back from the dead, then..." Moros continued, "Once you find the sword of destruction, you will naturally understand." Cassian frowned and asked, "That broken sword may be a piece of scrap metal. No, the sword of destruction is related to Jeff's death." Moros agreed with him. "I believe so." The group of people with purple and blonde hair glasses had arrived at some point. The purple-haired one appeared arrogant. "You're alive and well, aren't you?" Under the school building, several female students are admiring and praising a fire attribute, unrated psyker Kim Woo-chan, a handsome novice psyker who attracts the attention of all the female students. "He's so handsome, too handsome, holy shit. This is the first time I've seen someone like him." Kim Woo-chan walks confidently through the hallway. Suddenly, his phone rings. "Sunbae Lee Di-wong is calling," he answers. "Yes, Sunbae. What's up about that?" The eyes of the female students still stare at him longingly. Kim Woo-chan squints his eyes, cautiously listening to something important. He looks out the hallway window to observe. Kim Woo-chan replies, "I'll call back later." On the other side of the window is where Cassian is having issues, going back to our male lead Cassian. The other three people are looking at Cassian. Cassian is still trying to figure out the relationship between the master and them. Memories flash. He immediately understands who these people are. Moro speaks up. "Don't worry, no one, but you can see me." Their voices rise. "Damn it, I don't know what to say now when thinking about how I have to suffer because of that idiot over there. Kwon Kang-woo, you're still clueless, aren't you?" Purple Hair took out a cigarette and smoked like an adult, speaking loudly. "If you're not dead yet, you better report back. Who said you could sneak up here and hide? Thought it would be easy," but Cassian replied, "Have you finished talking? Now I am not happy. I really enjoyed bullying some brats, but I think you guys need to be taught a lesson." Moros felt uncomfortable and intervened. "Cassian, even without transforming, villains still have physical abilities far beyond normal people. It's best for you to control yourself or else." Cassian coldly replied, "I know." Blonde Hair approached disdainfully. "Dan, what did you just say? Are you crazy from drinking too much water earlier?" Cassian looked deep into his eyes, a demonic presence that made the blonde hair pale. He was a little scared. He did not expect Cassian's attitude to be so bold that he was about to raise his hand to slap him. "Get down, you brat." A punch from Cassian resounded, the force enough to make him eat dirt for a year. His two friends stood frozen for 5 seconds. Cassian remained silent as if not satisfied. The blonde hair fell, sprawled under Cassian's feet. His two friends were scared. What the hell? What did the loser just do? Purple Hair looked in horror at the body of his friend. Wearing glasses, he thought he was dreaming. He grabbed a stick and ran over Dickhead. "You're probably dead, dude." Cassian turned his gaze towards him, running close to step on him, swinging his club straight down, causing Cassian to use his hand to block. While his other hand clenched into a tight fist, the bespectacled youth flew off like a stuffed bear. Cassian glanced towards the purple hair and asked him, "Have you ever felt guilty for bullying others?" The purple-haired person froze, his mouth stiff. Cassian felt uncomfortable. "Why would you answer?" The purple-haired person smirked, trying to maintain his arrogant tone. "Guilty? What's that? Seeing you losers act as if you're superior makes me nauseous. Do you think picking on a few shrimps can teach me a lesson?" Cassian replied, I guess you don't feel guilty at all. In that case, I need to teach you a lesson. After a beating, I'm sure you'll feel guilty. Cassian raised his fist of steel once again, looking down from above. Only 4 people remain on the rooftop. Cassian rushed forward without making the purple-haired person wait long. The purple-haired person was very confident, thinking there's no way Cassian could beat him. The two clashed. The purple-haired person threw a punch, but Cassian lightly dodged it. Then a punch turned the purple-haired person's face upside down, catching him off guard. His jaw turned towards the sky. Cassian gave him a special treatment. A straight punch to his stomach made him double over. His eyes seemed to pop out, his face pale. Purple hair clinging to his stomach in pain, Cassian still looked at him quietly, asking, "Feel more guilty now." Purple hair retorted, "Damn it, asshole." Cassian grabbed him abruptly, lifting him up. I tried to hold back, but it seems that was not enough for you. Cassian stared at him with an emotionless face, saying, "I will hit you a little more then." Purple hair started to show fear, looking at Cassian like seeing a monster. But at that moment, Kim-woo-chan spoke up, "Don't you think that's enough?" When he saw Cassian's brute from the corridor, he appeared for some reason wanting to stop Cassian. Purple hair frowned, knowing the credibility of that red-haired person. Cassian let go of purple hair, turning to Kim-woo-chan asking, "Who are you? What's your involvement? Why do you intervene in someone else's fight?" Kim-woo-chan replied, "What do you gain from fighting someone who is not suitable for you?" Purple hair was shocked, silently thinking, "What? Not suitable for him? Is he saying this failure is stronger than me?" With this shock, how could he bear it? He rushed to try to hit Cassian, but Cassian quickly moved his leg to give him a straight kick to the chest, not giving him any chance to resist. Kim-woo-chan stepped forward to block. I said it's enough. Cassian glanced towards Kim-woo-chan, suddenly feeling something unusual. Cassian struck a light blow towards Kim-woo-chan's abdomen, but he also realized that something was not right. Kim-woo-chan was not an ordinary person. The two looked at each other. It seemed like a battle was about to take place. Cassian made a move. Kim-woo-chan dodged without striking back. Cassian suddenly paused. Kim-woo-chan swiftly kicked as fast as lightning. Cassian also dodged gracefully. Moros warned Cassian, "He is a psyker. With your current condition, fighting is not stable." While Cassian was still surprised, Kim-woo-chan rushed forward. A powerful punch. Cassian managed to dodge, but blood splattered on his face. A cut appeared. Damn it! From below, it seemed like nothing had happened. Kim-woo-chan gradually felt excited about this contest, while Cassian became more cautious, still skeptical. Is he a psyker? Kim-woo-chan had been using psychic powers to probe something, appearing very mysterious. He suddenly wants to make peace stop here. Continuing this battle will not benefit anyone. This made Cassian lose interest. Kim-woo-chan even handed him a personal bandage. He was very kind. "Your face is injured." The two of them silently looked at each other for a while. Cassian took it coldly. He turned and left. Kim-woo-chan followed his shadow until it disappeared, leaving behind 3 bodies lying on the ground. Kim-woo-chan thought to himself, "One hit 3, I didn't know there was someone like that in this school." Kim-woo-chan suddenly discovered something else, lifted his arm to see, not understanding what this situation was. Transitioning to the street, Cassian went into the internet cafe where you can rent computers to play games. Many places also serve snacks and simple dishes. Cassian tried to access the Lampa's account. "I don't have access. It seems like my membership ID has expired." Cassian was frustrated with this. "I was expecting it, but there's nothing happening." The next day, the sun was still shining brightly. Cassian and Moros chatted on the sidewalk. He asked Moros, "How do you know he is a psyker?" Moros replied, "You mean that guy we met on the rooftop of the school? When you connect with him, I can perceive it through the impact." Cassian muttered, "That ability is useful." Thanks to Moros' reminder. That's nothing. If you use the inside eye, you can grasp more detailed information. Cassian wondered, "The inside eye, how do you know there is such a thing?" Moros explained, "Because I am a noble spirit observing and studying carefully about the knowledge of this world. When talking about it, you were trying to transform into a villain. How will that be? In case the use of power in the future. Now is the best time to discover your potential." Cassian thought about something. Moros continued, "I guess you don't want that, do you?" Cassian nodded and replied, "Of course not, but I will try." Cassian looked determined. He bowed his head as if acknowledging a truth. "Because I have nothing to rely on except for this villain's power, what should I do?" Moros answered, "Becoming a villain means losing control with your own desires and emotions." Cassian seemed to not understand. Moros replied, "In your case, it seems to be expanding." Cassian tightened his fist. Oh, the moment between him and Jeff when he left the world of his past life made Cassian's blood boil like a madman. He shouted, losing control, "Lampas, you trash, I will kill you all." Moros was also frightened by this side of him. "What are you doing?" Moros asked. Cassian snarled. Anger, what else? Moros was surprised. Why scream like that? I just told you to imagine it in your head. Cassian was frustrated with him. Why didn't you say so earlier? In a city somewhere, the infamous criminal Balater, a crazy person who enjoys blowing things up and admiring his handiwork, seemed to have illegally entered the country through the Aikian port and was spotted this afternoon in the Atom district. Kim Woo-chen continued, so far, Balater has caused 102 casualties, quite a lot. The man sitting beside him, nibbling on a hot rice ball, was Lee Dung, a knight with a B-class physical nature. He spoke up. His ambidextrous ability is nothing special, but because he has the power to create explosions, it's troublesome, plus his terrible personality and neurological issues. Kim Woo-chan replied, the only answer for a villain is destruction. They are nothing more than social outcasts who cannot control their desires and emotions. We must uproot them before they act. Lee Deagle wonders, hey, do you know that every time we talk about villains, you look really scared? Kim Woo-chan replies, the responsibility of a psyker is to pursue justice. I only say what needs to be said. Deagle reassures himself, then exhales to relax and signals, I will be the one worrying about pursuing justice while you can focus on supporting me, Sir Apprentice. Kim Woo-chan remains silent, finding his mentor quite peculiar. Meanwhile, Cassian is checking the system for anything interesting. Moro's guides, this is your status for the appraisal eyes, looks like a game. Name is Kwon Kang-woo, special note, a catastrophic level villain, dark attribute, activates main anger skill, dark shadow mirror self-healing mana points, 300. Cassian asks, dark shadow mirror with self-healing? Moros responds, those are the skills you can currently use. Thanks to the self-healing, the wound on your face has quickly healed. Hearing this, Cassian jerks, really? If my hands and feet were cut off, would they grow back? Moros answers, it's possible. That power is limited by the amount of mana you possess at that time. Cassian looked at the screen. What about that hidden power? Moros replied, they are your latent powers. Once you evolve further, you can use them. Cassian exclaimed, wait, my mana points are only 300. When I was a psyker, it was over 1,500, a disaster level difference. This seems a bit. Moros explained, disaster level refers to your potential. You know how they say rough diamonds can be polished into diamonds. Whether you remain a stone or become a polished diamond depends on the effort you put in. There's much more to it. Cassian needed to know, can this skill assessment eye of yours be used on others besides me? Moros nodded, of course, but remember, my limit is 3 times a day. Cassian was surprised. What happens if used more than 3 times? Moros replied, I think it happened. Once with Jeff 4, I remember lying down for half a day to recover from overexertion. Cassian half believed, half a day. Aha. Moros suggested, let's test your main skill. Cassian asked, what do I need to do? Do I need to shout the skill name like in the game? Moros explains, imagine an image of a dark mirror in your mind. Cassian dubbed a surge of power that made the ground explode, like this. The scene startled both of them. It's really amazing. Something is coming out of these shadows. What is it? Cassian tapped on it. Can touch it. The sharpness of a shadow is equal to a knife, sharp enough to cut. Moros thought quietly at this moment. I thought it would take him a whole day to understand the skill, but I never imagined that he could use it immediately. Impossible. Has Jeff ever seen this potential of his? Cassian replied, difficult, maybe I can use it as a shield. Moros advised him, remember that you are a villain, you should also create a costume and something for yourself. Cassian signaled, at least I know that. In the blink of an eye, Cassian put on a cool black outfit. Not urgent, so this is fine for now. Moros exclaimed, you know, what kind of aesthetic is that which offends the viewers? Cassian, furious, didn't know what to say. In the evening in the city, one can also enjoy a bit of sunset scenery. Moros asked him, the sun has set. Where are you going? Cassian bluntly replied, home. Surprised, Moros asked, are you thinking about meeting her? Cassian replied, of course he really wants to. Maybe fate has it. He is a villain of a catastrophe. But Kwon Kang-woo seems very concerned about his sister. Doubtful, Moros said, you seem to feel guilty. Cassian responded, well, weren't you the one who said that although not yet the time, he would die for me? As they were discussing, a loud explosion rang out from behind. Cassian immediately became alert, the scene in front of him, blurry smoke and fire rising, people running towards him from that direction. He stood there dumbfounded, not understanding what was happening. The tall building is almost completely burnt down, with cries echoing in the sky. Damn it, it's the villain. They've made it to the newsgate. Now even social media. Oh my god. They said they captured a mother and her child too. Call the police. Cassian hesitated. Do I believe this? He immediately recognized the seriousness of the situation. Moros saw him dart away, hastily chasing after him. Wait, Cassian. Cassian's shadow rushed like an arrow, chasing after Moro's while advising him. You are facing a villain. He will be at a different level than the petty criminals earlier. His power may exceed the capabilities of any ordinary person. Cassian dismissively replied that I will just become a villain myself. Moro's explained clearly to him. The unwritten rule among villains is not to fight each other. As a former psyker, you should know that. Cassian paused and Moro's continued. Unless it's personal vengeance or some special reason like revenge, if you go in there as a villain, you might interfere with others' work, making you the #1 enemy among villains. Moro's even created a visual illustration, even before you struggled with Lampas. Cassian paused, standing in front of the ruined building, contemplating his precarious situation, going back and forth in his thoughts. Cassian stated, "It's okay." Moro's was completely shaken, smoke billowing out of the building. Moro's tried to convince him. Cassian, I hope your actions are not driven by the duty of a psyker. Cassian brushed it off. It's not relevant at all. There are hostages in there. They say it's a mother and her child. If you didn't know then, it's fine. But now I do. Cassian spoke with an unwavering tone. Doing nothing is just wrong. Moro's stopped speaking from now on, memories flooding back to him. Jeff used to talk about Cassian. He's very hot-tempered, so people often call him Crazy Dog. But his heart is warmer than anyone I know in the world, and that's why Jeff vouched for Cassian. Moro's suddenly realized I chose Jeff and Jeff chose Cassian. If that's the case, then I really can't say anything else, can I? Moro's quickly made a decision, urging Cassian. Change, I will wholeheartedly support you. In an abandoned building, it seems deserted and neglected with everything inside looking like it has been destroyed for a long time without anyone bothering to come here. Miscellaneous items are thrown all over the floor, turning into garbage dumps. A teddy bear and a duck are left in the corner. In a corner of a locked room in the building, that sinister clown kidnaps 2 people, a woman and a young boy, making their hearts ache with torture. Please don't do that. The clown ignores the pleas of the 2 people and just stares at the bomb in his hand that he has set on them, mocking and teasing them. Oh, it's so pitiful. Please don't cry like that. We're doing this so that everyone can enjoy the fun. You shouldn't cry, just smile. Please smile happily. The 2 look at his crazy appearance and shiver all over, while he is very excited about this plan, laughing with extreme delight, laughing like me. At the same time, not far away, Kim Woo-chan is at the gas station to fill his beloved car's tank. The sun is setting behind the mountain now. He stands still thinking about old times. He unconsciously looked at the wound on his hand and then back at the situation before. He had let his guard down, but upon reflection, he didn't even know the guy's name. Suddenly, an unfamiliar call came in. He immediately picked up the phone. Hello, Kim Woo-chan speaking. He was taken aback as if he had just received shocking news, while Lee Di-wong was also holding the phone in his hand. I'm sorry, I'm working now. Next time we'll go eat something delicious, my treat, okay? He showed great intimacy and indulgence towards his lover online. Seriously, I only have you. I have to go now. Love you. When Kim Woo-chan saw him leave, he said, just now you were in the toilet, but now you're out. He quickly reported to his senior. Boss, there's a mobilization order. Lee Di-wong was startled. What's going on? He immediately received a confidential message. The demon clown Baladar has appeared. Back at Baladar's place, he looked out the window and saw the sky lit up with spectacular fireworks, then asked the boy, have you ever seen colorful fireworks exploding high in the night sky? The boy, scared and crying, replied, no, sir. Oh my God, I can't believe the kid has never seen such a beautiful scene before. It's truly a tragedy of life. Then he approached and gently stroked the boy's cheeks and continued, but there's no need to be sad. I will show you something even more beautiful, because it's the blood and flesh of your beloved mother. Hearing this, the mother was in a panic. He laughed cruelly. There will be a magnificent explosion along with fireworks. The young boy, helpless, could only cry in despair. He felt more and more excited in his soul. I'm starting to feel ecstatic beyond words. Then he looked at the bomb-laden body of the mother and rambled. Let's start with the arms first, then the legs. Have to keep her head as a souvenir, so the neck and chest will be saved for last. He was getting excited about his gain when suddenly they heard the door opening and someone stepping in. He realized that they had been exposed. Someone is entering. He knew he couldn't hide anymore. I have to fight him now. It seems we have a visitor. No need to be shy. Let's go. He was preparing to attack with his powers. All right. A sudden shadow appeared behind him, preventing him from turning around in time. As he managed to twist his body, he couldn't dodge anymore. Just in time to see who it was, he immediately took a straight punch to the face, unable to avoid it. The punch with tremendous force sent him flying 10 meters, smashing the concrete wall like foam. He couldn't do anything but lie prone in the rubble. It turned out Cassian had arrived just in time to save the mother and child. He looked at them, saw that they were fine, and felt relieved, believing they were all okay. Suddenly, a bomb seized Cassian's body from nowhere, preparing to explode, and he instantly understood the problem. In just a few seconds, a bomb would explode, and the innocent mother and child and Moros sensed the situation was dire and there was little they could do. But wait, Cassian knew that being close to them would harm them, so he quickly decided to jump aside, leaping to ensure the safety of the mother and child. From the outside corner of the building, a horrifying explosion rang out, flames bursting intensely. Onlookers on the street gasped in shock, exclaiming, "Something just exploded! When will the police come to handle this?" What about the psychers? The explosion shattered everything inside into pieces, literally a tragedy. From the cars to the chairs, everything was destroyed, nothing remained intact. Balatter the clown stood proudly, overlooking the result of his actions. He chuckled with satisfaction. Bursting in without knocking, didn't even know who that poor guy was, but he was definitely a thoughtless fool. He was so confident in his bombs, thinking Cassian was dead in the recent blast. He thought he could put on an even better fireworks show, but unfortunately, he died too early. He started looking towards the mother and child, thinking of another masterpiece. Don't worry, because from his spot tonight, they will be the only highlight. Suddenly, something flashed past him, surprising him. The demonic clown turned around, shocked to realize that Cassian was not dead, but still lurking around. Unexpectedly, an arm reached out from the darkness and swiftly grabbed the bomb in his hand, blinding him with a bright light. Cassian appeared out of nowhere, lighting fast, grabbing his shirt and swiftly turning him into a bulletproof shield before he could even react. A straight punch to his face. He was punched straight down to the ground like a sandbag. The floor was destroyed to ruins. Everywhere was filled with dust and smoke. The clown Balatter lay on the ground in pain, growling angrily. Cassian tightly grabbed his arm to prevent him from doing anything bad, knowing it would be like this. Cassian had learned his sneaky tricks this time, so he took the initiative to grab his hand first, then gave him another thunderous punch. "You think I'll fall for this trick twice, dickhead?" Cassian unleashed all his anger on his face, punching him relentlessly. In the ruined building in the heart of the city, in a deserted place, the clown Balatter was continuously beaten up. The sounds of punches echoing in the night, Cassian punching him without stopping for a minute, as if it was an action beyond self-control. "Come on, bring it on." His twisted face seemed very satisfied with this action. More than that, he laughed eerily. Moros felt things had gone too far from the plan. At this point, Cassian also noticed the abnormality in his actions and stopped. Moros was relieved that he understood the situation and stopped at the right time. Finally, you gear it. Cassian was surprised and shocked because he didn't know what he was doing here. Cassian looked at the person in front of him, gasping, their body crushed, wondering, what the hell is this? He curiously didn't know what his arms had done, what he had done like this. Moros explained what had just happened. You were in a crazed state that couldn't control your mind, your emotions erupted and exceeded the original reason. If you can't regain your senses, you will become a madman, only caring about satisfying your own desires. Enough! Cassian regretfully hugged his face for what he had caused earlier. Damn it. His spirit seemed to completely collapse. He regretted what had happened earlier. Moros wanted to calm Cassian's spirit, so he comforted him. Are you okay? The explosion earlier. Cassian regained his composure and replied, I'm fine. We should focus on the hostage first. Once the evil man was dealt with, he turned to look at the mother and child. Moros and Cassian were stunned and didn't know what to say. The woman and child were also very scared, even more so than the demonic clown, because they saw his actions were brutal and ruthless. Shortly after receiving the information, the police arrived at the crime scene, sirens blaring. The serial killer Balatter was officially taken down and brought to the station. He was quickly rushed into an ambulance for emergency treatment. Lee Ji-won also arrived just in time to only see the aftermath of the incident. He received a phone call and reported to his boss. Yes, the mother and child being held hostage are both safe now. We should be more vigilant, but it seems to have turned into a territorial dispute among criminals as per witness accounts. One unidentified criminal. Inside, Kim Woo-chan investigated the massacre scene, only finding a teddy bear left on the ground. He stared at it, pondering, kidnapping a child. Only death is the answer to these villains. They said the hostage was rescued by a criminal. He overheard the investigating officers discussing, what a nonsense thing. Even I heard it, despite many witnesses there. Curious about the two people's story, he approached them to inquire about the situation. Sorry for interrupting about the matter you mentioned. Please don't tell anyone. Suddenly, there was a call for him. Kim Woo-chan. Lee Ji-won reminded him to keep the CCTV footage of the first floor staff room confidential, saying, I'll be right back, understand? He looked back at the teddy bear one last time and then threw it away and turned around. Until late night, the city became quiet. Cassian walked around the house alone and thought about last night. Please save us. Please, please. The image kept haunting him, unable to find peace, feeling only despair and blaming himself for being so stupid. Moros asked Cassian about his state of mind. What's bothering you? If it wasn't for your help, I may have already become like that miserable wretch, right? Cassian looked sadly at the star-filled sky and thought about himself. Am I really saving others? Am I a villain? Suddenly a message came to Cassian's phone, making him startle. He picked up the phone to see what it was. Moros, curious, asked, "Who is it?" Kang-woo's sister. She said dinner is ready. Moros asked again, "Are you going home?" Cassian stared at the phone, deep in thought. Transfer scene within the company. Criminal police investigating information of the case from last night. In the Human Resources office, Lee Dewon was watching the footage from last night that the camera had captured and was very surprised. What's going on here? Everyone was curious about Cassian's behavior. Who is this guy? People were extremely puzzled by Cassian's actions. Do my eyes have a problem or something? No matter how you look at it, he seems to be rescuing the hostage, like a hidden camera prank. Kim Woo-chan gradually understood the issue in this case. He already had things that he needed to investigate. At the same time, in Cassian's apartment building in his room 701, Cassian was in the room looking at a set meal prepared on the dining table, with a note left on it. Cassian picked it up to read, heat up the food with the microwave, and then eat. I also bought fruits in the fridge. I tried my best today. From the cutest sister in the world. As he read this, a memory suddenly rushed into his head. Eat and don't let the dean catch you. Cassian happily accepted the delicious food and ate it with pleasure. He remembered his past, a day when a woman reminded him, "Son, it's late for dinner." "I'm sorry, I was playing games, so I'm late. Any child who doesn't adhere to dinner time won't get food." Then someone handed him a fragrant loaf of bread in front of him. And now, looking back, my meal was plentiful and delicious, lacking nothing. But he could only eat alone in this place. He scooped up a spoonful of soup with a small spoon. Then Cassian took a sip to taste its flavor. So delicious. Suddenly, this flavor made him feel very familiar. It's been a long time since I had a meal prepared for me by someone. He happily enjoyed it in a relaxed manner. Thank you for the meal. Then Cassian went back to his room and lay down on the bed to prepare for sleep. He couldn't sleep, but still sat thinking about his daily stories. He suddenly remembered that he needed to brush his teeth before resting. He washed his face and took his toothbrush to brush for a long time in the bathroom. He looked in the mirror and thought about himself. I am not really myself. I can't believe that I am living someone else's human life. I thought I would feel better after a nap, but not, if possible. I want to go back to the past. Moros suddenly appeared, greeting Cassian. "Good morning, Cassian. This morning is not very pleasant." He quickly grabbed his book and hurried to his study place. Surprisingly, a voice from inside the room murmured curiously, "Are you going to school?" Kwon Yuri just woke up in a daze at this moment. At least I should tell her if I'm going. Cassian also felt awkward and couldn't confront the woman in front of him. Holy shit, Dan, how do I talk to her? I feel so awkward. The older sister kept rubbing her eyes to wake up. Cassian hesitated to tell the whole truth. Should I just tell her that I'm not really her brother? All right. She took out a credit card from her wallet and handed it to Cassian. "Here, the ATM card we talked about last time. I deposited your living expenses here, so spend it wisely." Cassian didn't understand. What's this about? Where did she get this ATM card? Cassian didn't think much and took the card with a cute bear printed on it. Cassian suddenly remembered he needed some more money, so he asked his sister, "Hey, sis." Kwon Yuri listened in confusion as Cassian stuttered, "Can I receive next month's living expenses in advance?" The older sister was surprised why her younger brother needed money today. "But I just sent you some last week. What's going on?" Cassian was being threatened for money by a group of thugs. "Lend me some money, just 100,000 won, please." Not wanting his sister to know the truth, he lied, saying, "I lost my wallet." Unexpectedly, his sister remained calm and gently placed the TV remote down. "All right, since you begged like that, I'll give it to you." Cassian happily exclaimed, "Thank you." Additionally, she would make an ATM card for him to use freely. Cassian was confused. An ATM card? After a while, he realized what he was holding in his hand. "Oh, I see." Grateful to his sister, Cassian said, "Thank you so much. I'll be careful with this card. Okay, I'm off to go now." Suddenly, his older sister noticed something strange about her little brother. "Wait, Kang-woo, you look different today." She looked him up and down, admiring his appearance. "You changed your hairstyle." "Ha, Kang-woo? You look like a different person. Remember when I told you to get a haircut, but you refused? You just changed the way you style your hair." Thinking her little brother must have a girlfriend, she said, "Do you have a girlfriend now?" "Go to school." "Okay." At school, all the students today were excitedly discussing the incident with that hoodlum. In each class, everyone started paying attention to No-se-chan. They looked at his bruised face and quietly thought, what happened to him? Looks like he got into a fight. Everyone found it strange because usually he was the one bullying others, and they had never seen anyone fight back against him like this. Who could actually fight him? That's no such Chan, right? The blonde hoodlum sat still, listening to the disrespectful gossip of those around him, feeling very angry. He was irritated by hearing mocking comments that irritated him. He turned to stare at the group of people nearby, making them scared to the point they turned away, not daring to look him in the eye. He angrily scolded them. What are you looking at, huh? Itches your mouth, huh? Want to die, don't you? Look at what? Everyone in the room was shocked and scared, not daring to say a word. He was embarrassed by what happened last time, so he was now getting angrier the more he thought about it. Damn asshole, it's all because of that failure that caused me trouble. Suddenly, Cassian appeared behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Looking for me, when he turned around, he was surprised to see Cassian, his expression changing abruptly upon seeing him. Cassian responded coldly. Where do you think you're going? The blonde-haired guy was scared, sweating profusely, his eyes showing worry. He hesitated, pointing upwards, saying, "Oh, over there." Kang-woo slowly walked back to his place, and the blonde guy was too scared to say anything, just trembling and secretly glancing at Kang-woo. He went back to his table, threw his backpack on it, and nonchalantly sat down without any fear. Moros looked into the eyes of the blonde guy with a bitter hatred. You can't sense his gaze. He's staring at you intently. He could only swallow his anger. Dickhead, a terrorist villain, impossible. Right in our neighborhood. Above, Kang-woo's 3 classmates were excitedly discussing the events of that night. I saw it with my own eyes. Those villains fighting each other. I'm not kidding. Holy shit, really, how fun. Moros subtly understood that they were talking about Kang-woo. Sounds like they're discussing you. They seem very impressed with this mysterious figure. WTF, scary. You know, that's also a random serial killing case. I heard the victim was a high school girl. Saw it on the news. It cut off her limbs and drained all her blood. No doubt now, the villain is definitely at work. You know, heard that the one responsible for it is a villain named Driver, really. But Driver is the leader of Villzone in Gaiden District. After hearing that, Kang-woo quietly thought to himself, in Gaiden District, there's Villzone. Have you heard about it? What's going on there? I heard the Driver is conducting some experiments on human bodies. Holy shit, that monster must be insane, so disgusting. I hope those villains will go to hell and suffer there. Kang-woo, sitting behind, didn't pay much attention and focused on his fun after school in a secluded corner of a small street. Kwak Diagu was sitting there laughing comfortably. Hey, watch your mouth, struggling after being defeated by a loser. Haha. Furious, Kang-woo replied, don't mess with me. Seeing his friend looking serious, Kwak Diagu stopped joking. Okay, relax a bit. He threw his cigarette butt on the ground. So, you're saying we should go kill that guy together? Kang-woo handed him a small envelope. I can't sit still and do nothing. I'll make it worth your effort. The 2 roads happily accepted the money, and the mushroom-haired guy standing outside felt that this mission might be a bit unsafe. He stood outside without saying a word, looking at him as if he truly didn't care about this matter. The blonde opened the envelope and found a lot of money, feeling extremely excited. Oh, so much money here. He then walked up next to the purple-haired, draping his arm around him, like they were blood brothers. Friends, right? That's how it is, isn't it? Give and take, that's how we understand each other, right? His face looked very scary, almost creepy, as he said, feel free to speak your mind should we break his arms and legs, or just kill him to get it over with. The scene shifted to inside the school, where everyone was getting ready to leave classes. Outside the classroom, everyone was excited as the bell signaling the end of the day rang. Time to go home. Want to go sing karaoke? What about remedial class? Cassian was about to head home when he heard someone calling out to him. Hey, wait up. It was none other than Kim Woo-chan, who approached to introduce himself and inquire about Cassian's background. Sorry, I don't know your name. How's your wound? Cassian simply pointed to the scar on his face. Take a look yourself. He seemed to pay little attention to the man. Moros looked at the man's face with a hint of suspicion. Cassian slowly peeled off the sticker on his face, revealing that Cassian went into the bathroom to take it off. Moros was curious as to why he had to do this. Your wound is healed. Why are you still bandaging it like that? Cassian explained. If I happen to meet him again, he'll find it suspicious. Moros also understood and praised Cassian's ability to see things clearly. This kid thinks deeply, doesn't he? What do you want? Planning to pay me for medical expenses? Kim Woo-chan seemed to sense someone behind him watching. He couldn't care much and asked further. Besides medical expenses, do you want me to do anything else for you? Cassian thought he had something important to say, but turned out to be just nonsense. Cassian lost interest in continuing the conversation and turned to leave. Go away. Kim Woo-chan just tried to ask for his name. What's your name? Kwon Kang-woo. After saying that, he slowly walked back home. Kwon Kang-woo. Kim Woo-chan began to feel there was something worth investigating about this person. Outside the school gate, students were pouring out onto the street to go home. Only Cassian was not in a hurry. He walked leisurely, feeling a bit confused by the person who had just made him feel uncomfortable. Moros asked curiously, "Is that kid priest making you worried?" Cassian didn't want to say much, just stayed silent and walked on. Not answering is an answer. That kid's name is Kim Woo-chan. He has fire abilities. His bright appearance can make anyone feel ashamed. He studies well, has good behavior, and with his sense of justice, he won't let any bad guys go. He is the latest superstar among the priests. Moros also felt a little uneasy after hearing this. That's what the internet says about him. He's a boy who has it all, so are you jealous? His ideal model is someone with similar abilities, a senior priest like Cassian Lee. You are his ideal model, a rising star in the priest school like him. What is he doing in a normal high school like this? Suspicious. Moros also sensed someone following him from behind, so he became more vigilant. The blonde hair and his gang were following Kang-woo all the way from school to here to seek revenge. Moros didn't care about those foolish kids. These stupid and predictable kids. His cronies called to inquire about the situation over there. "Hey, how's everything going?" Before he could gather any information, he replied, "Well, we're keeping an eye on him. No issues so far. I'll keep in touch." On the rooftop of the school, the blonde-haired group was discussing amongst themselves when one of them called the blonde. Curious, Kwak Diagu said, "What did he say?" He mentioned monitoring the movements of that failure. At least this time, he's got something going. He flicked his cigarette butt away and responded, "Then let's proceed with the plan. No need to wait any longer." The three of them eagerly started preparing to give Kang-woo a memorable beating. At a deserted-looking factory, where few people passed by, a rundown and desolate place, Kang-woo walked into an alley. Everything was going according to their plan. Kang-woo walked calmly and without fear. The blonde couldn't understand why Kang-woo was going into this poor and dangerous area. Dan, this guy. He was getting more and more angry and could barely control himself. Son of a bitch, why did he come here, Dan? This path leads to the territory of the bad guys. Suddenly, he was startled by someone behind him. It turned out to be his cronies coming to support him. He turned around out of breath. "Holy shit, startled me. My heart is about to jump out. What should we do? Do you have any ideas? Do you?" "No. What I meant was..." Purple had curiosity. He has been following Kwon Kang-woo for a while without knowing the result. Where did that loser go? Over there. The blonde hair pointed towards Cassian in fear, but he was surprised to find that he had disappeared at some point. Shit. They stared deep into the alley, but couldn't find him. "He's not here. Where are you pointing?" The blonde hair was confused. "What? He was just here." The person next to him looked deep into the alley and shouted loudly. He went into that alley. The four of them went in together, determined to catch Cassian. "Hurry up. Catch him before he escapes." The blonde hair was worried because the place they were heading to was extremely dangerous. "Slow down. That's where the criminals are, Dan. These guys want to die." The blonde hair didn't want to go alone, so he had to follow along. "Hey, wait for me." Entering the alley was a very rundown and dangerous residential area with hidden dangers. They didn't know what was waiting for them here. Kwak Diagu was curious about this area. "What devilish place is this? This is a dead end. There's nothing else here." Since they couldn't find Cassian's whereabouts, they turned their anger towards the blonde youth. "Are you sure he went this way?" "Definitely, Dan. This is not good like this." The fat guy angrily kicked the box at his feet to scare off those boys. Seeing that, the one with glasses was extremely frightened and didn't dare say anything. He could not find his target, so he asked the other two young men, "Are you guys taking turns mocking me?" With trembling glasses, not knowing how to speak to him, a voice suddenly came from behind. "Looking for me?" Everyone stood still for a moment. Cassian appeared coolly like a hero in front of the five ruffians. Kang-woo calmly faced them, determined to finish it once and for all. "If you're looking for me, you come to the right place." Unexpectedly, there was a camera above their heads recording this, both sides ready to engage in battle. Behind the recording lens was a figure secretly watching. In another room, Kang-woo's actions were observed in detail. This room equipped with modern machinery and equipment. On a chair, someone was sitting and observing, holding a screwdriver and fiddling with it casually. It turned out that the driver was plotting strategies to deal with Kang-woo. He seemed very interested in his target this time. "It seems we have a visitor." They are gathering in an alley under the old apartment building. Kwon Kang-woo glanced coldly at the incompetent group in front of him. Kwak Diagu led the group with his hands in his pockets, looking arrogant as he said, "Ha ha ha. He's not surprised at all to see us. This guy must be dumb." Kwak Diagu smirked, showing a contemptuous attitude, and asked, "Are you the one who defeated my men?" Won Kang did not bother to answer, just looked at them with a disdainful look. Kwak Diagu chuckled triumphantly and said loudly, "Damn it. Look at his face. He extended 3 fingers to his face and said menacingly, "I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't want to die, needle down. 1, 2, 3. Time's up." Kang-woo remained calm, showing no reaction at all. Kwak Diavu frowned, surprised that no one had ever dared to confront him. Infuriated, he gritted his teeth and cursed. "Son of a bitch!" He then boldly approached Kang-woo, getting close to his face and challenging him. "Do you really want to fight?" Kang-woo smirked and replied, "A guy like you wants to fight." Enraged, Kwak Diavu was taken aback by the protagonist's words and asked, "What did you say?" Suddenly, Kang-woo swiftly used his 2 fingers to poke at Kwak Diavu's eyes, making him unable to dodge in time, holding his face in pain and shouting, "Oh shit, my eyes." Not stopping there, Kang-woo grabbed the dirty blonde hair of Kwak Diavu and slammed his face down low against the wall in front of him. Kwak Diavu grimaced, his front teeth bared piece by piece. No Sechan and the purple hair witnessed the scene of the big brother being beaten by Kang-woo up to the edge of the field, also feeling afraid, their faces full of astonishment and panic. Kwak Diavu lay face down on the ground, unable to lift his body anymore. Kang-woo dusted off his hands and scolded Kwak Diavu. "Why do you keep pressing your ugly face in pain against me like a fool?" The brown-haired guy couldn't bear the humiliation of being brought down like this. He gritted his teeth and cursed loudly, "Asshole, son of a bitch." Then he rushed towards Kang-woo, throwing a strong punch towards him. But our protagonist quickly dodged. The brown-haired guy continued to attack persistently, but still missed. Kang-woo swiftly stood behind him, glancing at him. Kang-woo kicked hard on the shins of the brown-haired guy, making him fly 10 meters and lie flat on the ground, his whole body wet, his face grimacing. Kang-woo lifted his foot in front of him and said, "I was planning to go easy on you guys, but you really are a bunch of clueless fools." He then stomped his foot in the middle of the face of the dark-haired boy, who screamed in pain. Kang-woo looked at the other 3 coldly and asked, "Are you just going to stand there and watch?" Suddenly, Kwak Diavu's voice rang out, "You want to die." The boy staggered to his feet, clutching his head and glaring at Kang-woo, gritting his teeth and growling, "You're dead." The blonde and purple-haired boys were stunned by Kwak Diavu's sudden outburst. Kang-woo turned back to him and silently thought to himself, "I was still too gentle with him." Kwak Diavu shrugged his shoulders, raised his arms and legs in a fighting stance, rumored to be the runner-up in high school Muay Thai. The purple-haired boy smiled smugly and said loudly, "A Muay Thai master finally reveals himself. That guy's definitely done for." No Sechan and the boy with glasses gasped in amazement. Kang-woo remained calm, his eyes filled with a deadly glint, remembering Kwak Diavu's past victories. He remembered back when he was still at the fitness center studying and fighting, during a wrestling match with Psyker Class C John Claus. The spectators laughed and reminded John Claus, "Take it easy. You're going to kill him. That sneaky guy already escaped. Haha." Jack Khaled appeared coldly and asked these people, "What are you doing?" The 2 turned back to look and then awkwardly replied, "Jack Khaled, you're here. A bit late." Jack Khaled approached and asked, "What are you guys up to?" The blonde chuckled and replied, "This rookie is being educated again." Jack Khaled frowned, appearing indifferent. In the arena, Psyker Class C John Claus was relentlessly attacking Kang-woo. Jack Khaled wondered, why isn't he wearing protective gear? The blonde smirked and joked, "He's just arrogant. Our beloved rookie says he doesn't need them." Jack Khaled clarified, "I'm not talking about the rookie." The blonde, looking confused, asked, "Are you talking about John?" Jack Khaled explained about the main character's profile to broaden the other 2's perspective. Cassian Lee, that guy graduated from Psyker Combat Training School, the youngest top graduate. The 2 young men with blonde and brown hair were shocked and asked, "Top graduate?" Jack Khaled continued with a cold expression. "He specializes in close combat. There is no information about him ever losing in a one-on-one fight." The brown-haired person frowned and spiked his hair, asking, "Close combat isn't his ability to control fire?" The blonde-haired person also astonished, saying, "He is not a mage, is he?" The main character swiftly moved and left the 2 of them in awe. Back to reality, Kang-woo threw a punch right in front of Kwak Diavu, the runner-up in high school kickboxing, causing him to fall to the ground, blood splattering everywhere. Kang-woo's eyes shone brightly, standing tall and proud as Kwak Diavu wiped the blood off his mouth with a hand, looking quite pitiful. Kang-woo firmly pressed his hand against his face, his eyes cold as if wanting to crush Kwak Diavu's head, silently thinking to himself, "These poor little hoodlums, they keep causing trouble because no one teaches them. If they face a stronger opponent, they probably won't dare to make a sound anymore." That goes for those guys too. If I were stronger at that time, Jeff and Kang-woo might have escaped this miserable fate. I will become stronger, unbeatable, and make the Lampas gang tremble in fear. The purple hair all over trembling said, "Damn it, run." Then the two guys gradually stepped back. The blonde hair whispered, "We should leave here." Kang-woo glanced at these two. At this moment, Driver stood high above, looking down from a dangerous height. A terrified scream echoed, "Driver the villain!" His appearance made the thugs frightened and startled. They immediately recognized and shouted loudly. The villain was floating in the air, Screwdriver. He smirked and greeted everyone below, the purple hair trembling all over, teeth chattering. Then he shouted to his comrades, "Run! Run away!" Shit. The group of people with 3 legs and 4 calves ran frantically. Only Kang-woo remained calm without any fear. Kwak Diagu stumbled and ran after them. His face darkened as he shouted, "Ah, don't leave me alone." Kang-woo looked coldly at Driver. Moros appeared and called out the main character. "Cassian, this man is Screwdriver, right?" Driver landed on the ground. He walked closer to Kang-woo and smirked, asking the main character, "Not fun, huh?" While walking, he was turning the giant screwdriver on his shoulder, confidently stating, "I think a helping hand would be good, but it seems I've misunderstood the situation." Kang-woo furrowed his brows and said to Driver, "I don't remember asking for your help." Upon hearing this, Driver raised his voice arrogantly and said, "Isn't that rude? You don't know who I am." Kang-woo calmly replied, "You are Screwdriver." Screwdriver was slightly annoyed and said, "You speak as if you don't know. You truly hurt my pride." He then pointed the handle of the giant screwdriver towards our protagonist, shining a light directly into Kang-woo's face. Kang-woo stood frozen, watching Driver's next move. Driver warned, "If you've come to the villain's territory, you should know what awaits you." The light shining in Kang-woo's eyes hinted at something unpleasant about to happen. But then, a giant rose flower shot out from the bottom of the screwdriver's handle. Excitedly, Driver asked, "Surprised? I was just kidding." He chuckled happily, while Kang-woo remained emotionless in the face of his playful antics. The Driver quickly turned off his smile, reminding the protagonist, but next time, it could be real. Moros also sided Driver's silly antics, muttering, "Not much different from a clown." Kang-woo remained silent, then coolly turned and walked away. The Driver loudly asked, "Hey, where are you going?" Kang-woo replied shortly, "Home." The Driver stood speechless in the alley, watching Kang-woo's figure fade away, wondering to himself, "I just got ignored." Kang-woo slowly walked out of the narrow alley, with Moros trailing behind, reminding Cassian that was very dangerous just now. You can't beat Screwdriver now. According to my calculations, his magic is not to be underestimated. Not hearing Moros finish his sentence, Kang-woo rushed forward. Moros followed and called out loudly, "Cassian." Kang-woo slammed his hand on the iron fence, bowed his head, and looked disappointed. Moros looked at him and sighed, asking, "Just met a strong opponent and already feeling shaken. If you train diligently now, you will defeat him in no time." Kang-woo asked Moros, "Can you see his information with your divine eyes?" Moros thought he misheard and asked, shocked, "What?" Kang-woo, determined, continued, "This is a perfect opportunity to confront a strong opponent. I think the best way to learn is to face the opportunities that life gives you. I can't miss such a good opportunity like this." Kang-woo smiled confidently while speaking. The sky was darkening, and the Driver stood frozen in front of Kang-woo's indifference, remembering the tricks that the male lead had used on the unruly crowd earlier. The Driver kept stomping his feet on the ground repeatedly, mimicking the decisive actions of the male lead. Muttering to himself, "He's acting like this, that guy. His movements are abnormal. Who is he?" In his mind, the Driver couldn't help but wonder about Kang-woo's background. "He's not even afraid when he sees me. These students are really scary." Looking up at the sky, the Driver suddenly felt a strong wind blowing, sensing that something was not right. Something was rushing to attack him from behind, so he glanced back and saw Kang-woo emitting an aura of power, charging straight towards him at breakneck speed. This made the Driver panic slightly, as he hadn't prepared any defense when Kang-woo kicked him in the stomach. The force pushed the Driver back several meters. Regaining his composure, the Driver pressed a control switch on his body and charged fiercely towards Kang-woo. Kang-woo continued to unleash his moves, shouting loudly, "Night Strike." Seeing this, the Driver immediately leaped into the air to avoid the male lead's attack. Kang-woo looked up at the Driver above and thought to himself, as expected, he's not ordinary. The Driver began to ride the wind and clouds, causing the earth and sky to tremble. His giant screwdriver spins around at dizzying speed. The Driver carries the screwdriver on his shoulder towards Kang-woo, loudly saying, "Summon weapon." Moros immediately warns the protagonist, "Be careful, he's summoning a weapon." The giant screwdriver is now only about 1 meter away from Kwon Kang-woo's face. The driver smugly says, "That thing is really dangerous, you know." Under the handle of the giant screwdriver emits an extremely intense light, with the storm blowing so strongly that clothes and hair are flying. The driver smirks and says, "I think I should pay my respects a little." Kwon Kang-woo looks slightly shocked by the power of the driver, who laughs confidently, the brilliant light shining directly into Kwon Kang-woo's eyes, disorienting him and making it impossible for him to see clearly around him. Then the waves of light spread throughout the universe, causing fear among villains worldwide. The A-list female villain is quite startled. The B-list villain with a red headband also looks up to the sky. A man with a star-shaped scar on his face, busy massaging someone, also stops in confusion, asking, "What is that?" The driver's body radiates a brilliant light that makes all the villains terrified as he stands, watching Kwon Kang-woo confront his own power. Kwon Kang-woo extends both legs with a cold expression on his face, looking up at the driver. Moros reminds Kwon Kang-woo, "His mana is over 1,000, meaning it's 3 times yours." At this moment, the system screen displays Screwdriver's profile. Special note, the villain awakens the mechanic attribute, showing curiosity. Main skills are Machine Head, Driver Smash, Hugel Beam, Driver Formation, Mana Tool Formation, Mana 1100. Kwon Kang-woo pondered silently as Moros noticed he had been ignoring him and asked, "Hey, do you hear what I just said?" Kwon Kang-woo smirked, looking intrigued, and replied, "This battle will be fun." Moros asked him confidently, "Are you sure about that?" Driver chuckled, praising Kwon Kang-woo. "Well done, blocking my attacks. It seems like I've been too easy on you. Let's try again." He had launched an attack on Kwon Kang-woo, who faced it without fear. The two powerful forces clashed, creating a fierce wind that seemed to sweep everything away. Kwon Kang-woo gracefully dodged and countered Driver's attacks, evading them with ease. The driver grinded his teeth, his face filled with anger, thinking to himself, "Damn it, he can predict my moves. Who is this guy? His skills are beyond belief." Could it be that he defeated Balatter? Kwon Kang-woo tightly gripped the handle of the screwdriver with one hand, while the driver held the long shaft, both forces crashing into the screwdriver, causing it to bend dangerously. The driver furrowed his brows, a terrible light emanating as if to crush everything. Kwon Kang-woo remained cold-faced without a hint of fear as he looked at his opponent, the driver's eyes shining like car headlights. He shone a laser light on Kwon Kang-woo's face. Kwon Kang-woo quickly kicked his opponent's heel, causing him to fall backward and lay flat on the ground. The driver, teeth grinding, thought to himself in anger, "Holy shit, he's insane." The main character took advantage of the situation and asked loudly, "Are you a close combat fighter?" The driver quickly got up, the screwdriver handle waving fast. He raised his fist forward, using steel defensive gloves, causing his hand to enlarge several times. The fingers adorned with sparkling gemstones, he shouted, "Defense." Kwon Kang-woo also rushed towards him, the white light shining directly on Kwon Kang-wook's face. But that couldn't stop the protagonist, now driver, with a look of panic, realized that Kwon Kang-woo was already in front of him. He raised his fist, preparing to attack. The powerful punch of the protagonist causing Driver to fly several meters away. He sat on the ground, wrinkling his face and silently thinking to himself. He was not joking, his fighting style was different, and he couldn't excel in real combat like this unless he was professionally trained. Kwon Kang-woo's eyes turned 2 colors. He stood arrogantly, and suddenly someone's voice sounded reproachfully. "Driver, what are you doing here, you fool?" Upon hearing this, Driver stood up with a heavy screwdriver in hand. The villains of high social status appeared, the A-class woman Crow, the B-class villain Radai. They greeted the protagonist, while the B-class villain Black Hand arrived energetically and asked, "What are you up to? Aren't you being too soft on him?" The group of villains has gathered, blocking both exits. Kwon Kang-woo smiled and asked, "Can't fight, so calling reinforcements?" Villain Crow, surprised, asked, "Screwdriver, what is it you've been defeated?" Driver smiled and replied, "Not exactly, I haven't been defeated." Crow chuckled and said, "Seems like you really have been defeated." Screwdriver, annoyed, asserted, "I told you I haven't been defeated." Black Hand stared at Kwon Kang-woo, a nameless figure in front of him, thinking to himself, "Defeated, huh? He was defeated by that amateur Screwdriver." Screwdriver questioned Kwon Kang-woo, "Why are you picking a fight with me out of nowhere?" The group of villains looked up at the protagonist, waiting for his response. Kwon Kang-woo coldly and confidently replied, "Because I want to challenge someone stronger, and I can't let a villain like you go around killing people recklessly." Screwdriver, slightly surprised, furrowed his brows and asked the protagonist, "Reckless, are you talking about that notorious serial killer?" Villain Crow chuckled mischievously and said, "It wouldn't be wrong to chop off that killer's head, right, Screwdriver?" The driver looked at Kang-woo and pointed to himself, asking, "Are you saying that I am the murderer?" Crow smiled affirmatively. "Yes, that's right." The driver laughed loudly and arrogantly said, "Suddenly this huge crime falls on me. Who is the wicked and evil person who spread that nonsense rumor?" Blackhand kept staring at Kang-woo without taking his eyes off him, thinking to himself, "Who is he to be so arrogant, especially in front of Screwdriver? I want to kill him right now." Then he clenched his steel hand tightly. Screwdriver carried the screwdriver on his shoulder and coldly said to Kang-woo, "Let's get straight to the point. I am not the murderer you're looking for." Kang-woo asked, "Do you have any evidence?" The driver replied, "No." Blackhand's eyes changed. A thought flashed in his mind. That means he might actually be the murderer. Our main character was also quite confused because he didn't know if Driver's words were true or not. Blackhand's face was full of murderous intent. The atmosphere darkened. He growled, "Now you will die under my rule, you arrogant son of a bitch." He quickly rushed towards Kang-woo, raising his fist with all his strength to attack. Kang-woo shouted loudly from behind, "Death strike." With a determined expression and fierce eyes, he muttered, "Die." Kang-woo quickly dodged Blackhand's attack. His fist slammed into the ground, shattering the rocks. Kang-woo whispered in Blackhand's ear, "That's how you dirty scum operate." Blackhand glared at Kang-woo. Kang-woo continued coldly, "Your gang's trademark is attacking from behind, isn't it?" Enraged, Blackhand clenched his teeth and threw all his force into a direct punch at Kang-woo. He yelled in anger, pushing with all of his might. Kang-woo stood his ground and also launched a strong counterattack, speaking loudly, "This is what despicable creatures like you deserve." Blackhand's body was overwhelmed by Kang-woo's strength, unable to lift his head, leaving the villains astonished. Screwdriver smirked, perhaps he had already anticipated this. Blackhand flew back and fell heavily to the ground. Screwdriver shook his head and said, "Was that necessary?" Ray-Dai rushed to Blackhand's side, who was now lying on the ground in pain. Ray-Dai gritted his teeth, thinking, "No way. He defeated the third-ranked villain in the area. He took down Blackhand." Kang-woo also had to use up a lot of mana. He stood leaning with his hand holding his head. Seeing this, Moros asked, "Are you okay?" Screwdriver arrogantly asked Kang-woo, "Feeling dizzy and lightheaded, aren't you?" Screwdriver analyzed the numbers he collected through his magic gauge and said, "That's because your magic power is still below 300, and it has increased too quickly." Crow exclaimed, her face full of astonishment. "His magic power is only at 300. Ray-Dai frowned and said loudly, "Ha ha ha, only 300. Then he is only ranked as a D." He turned to look at Kang-woo with a curious and puzzled look. How can a low-ranked Yi like this do that? Blackhand's magic power surpasses that of a B-ranked individual. How can he be defeated with just one blow? Screwdriver explained to everyone to calm their confusion. It's not that shocking. Although rare, there are cases where a B-ranked individual can defeat an A-ranked one. Magic power is not the only thing that determines victory or defeat. His speed and strength are remarkable. Moreover, he possesses combat skills far superior to Blackhand's capabilities. He is a mechanical exception. He is what they call an advanced machine optimized to perfection. Screwdriver pulled out a glass jar containing magic stones from within himself, then smiled and asked, Kang-woo, "Do you know what this is?" Kang-woo stared at it, but didn't answer. He thought to himself, "Magic stones." Screwdriver continued, "A villain can increase their magical power by undergoing extremely difficult training or by using magic stones." He then threw the stone to Kang-woo, who caught it with his hand. Screwdriver commanded him, "Use it." Kang-woo asked in confusion, "Why are you giving me this?" Screwdriver smiled and said, "I want to make a deal." Kang-woo immediately refused, but Screwdriver still stated his conditions. "I'm not interested. I can't stand injustice. I'm talking about the serial killings. I want you to catch him for meaty, so I gave you a magic stone to use for this deal. You can freely accept or reject the deal." Hearing this, Kang-woo temporarily agreed with Screwdriver and said, "It seems like you are not the real murderer." Screwdriver reaffirmed, "Of course not. There's something fishy going on here." Kang-woo interrogated him. "If you see something wrong, why don't you go find that person yourself?" Screwdriver chuckled, his face appearing mysterious as he said, "Everyone has a secret pain they can't speak of." Then the two of them looked at each other, one deep in thought, the other waiting for an answer. There was no one else on the street besides Kang-woo walking. He gazed at the magical stone in his hand and muttered, "He wants me to swallow this, huh?" Moro spoke to him. There are two types of magical stones, one that occurs naturally called yin-yang stones and another type created by humans called magical stones. The difference between them is like day and night. Unfortunately, This is not a yin-yang stone, but it will significantly enhance your magical power. Kang-woo replied, I know that. Moros continued, so magical stones should be used when you are in the awakened form of an evil being. Kang-woo raised the stone hide and transformed his body back into the awakened form of an evil being as Moros instructed. Before swallowing it, Kang-woo asked Moros again, are you sure this is a magical stone? Moros confirmed firmly, I'm sure. Kang-woo stood pensive for a moment before saying, Jeff always reminds me not to eat anything harmful. He then decisively swallowed the magic stone, gazing at himself to see if anything changed, but surprisingly, nothing happened. Kang-woo then told Moros, there's no change at all. I don't see any difference. Moros replied, wait a moment. A few seconds later, Kang-woo's eyes changed in expression, a powerful force surging within him. Light radiated from his body, leaving him astonished, asking, what on earth is this? Moros calmed the protagonist, saying, stay calm, very calm. Moros opened his eyes wide to witness the transformation, a large amount of mana being infused into Kang-woo's body. His hands became heavier, standing with legs spread and arms outstretched. A tremendous force emanated from him, accompanied by a blinding light piercing through the dark night sky. Kang-woo thought to himself, my magic power has increased. Electric light radiated from his body as he looked at his hands and pondered, just by swallowing a magic stone, I feel a significant change. Now I understand why villains are so interested in magic stones. It's like a cheating trick. Kang-woo asked Moros, can you see my information through the eyes of God? As the sunset was slowly setting, the sun disappearing behind the mountain peak, he saw his profile on the screen and exclaimed in shock, what? My magic points are 350 impossible. The transformation looks amazing, but only increased by 50 points. Moros calmly replied, well, even if you swallow a magical stone of the highest level, your magic points will only increase by 510 points. Increasing by 50 points is the highest level ever, a 500% increase, meaning the magical stone is truly effective, even against a catastrophic enemy. Kang-woo pressed the system screen with his finger and asked, what is this hidden skill revealed now? It says magical stone extraction. Magical stone extraction? How do I use this? Moros explained, it is more like extracting magical stones from weapons, including weapons made of yin and yang stones. Upon hearing this, Kang-woo was somewhat disappointed and said, I thought hidden skills were supposed to be cool and stylish, but it seems useless like this. Moros, surprised, asked the protagonist, useless? You might not be the only one who can do this. It means you can create as many magical stones as you want. Kang-woo then asked, so where do I find weapons made of magical stones? Switching scenes to the donut coffee shop on the street corner, Lee Di-wong excitedly smiled as he held the sword engraved with a twisting phoenix dragon. He happily exclaimed, finally, it's my own sword. It also has an outstanding name, the Crouching Tiger Sword. What do you think? He glanced expectantly at Kim Woo-chan for comments on the sword. Kim Woo-chan, with a less than cheerful expression, said, a good sword. This is the sword I really love. It's not something lifeless like that. It's made with at least 2 magic stones, excellent quality. This is the top sword of all swords. Put away that sword and tell me if you have any new information about the villain who fought the Belatter. Kim Woo-chan's serious expression asked Lee Dun, who calmly held up a donut and said, this guy, you're changing the subject. Then he chewed on the donut in his mouth and reported, I searched for data, but found no information on him. He may be a newly awakened villain. Lee Di-wong speculated to himself, could he be an undiscovered psyker? If he doesn't match in appearance and characteristics, then he's definitely a villain. Now is not the time to worry about someone like him. While they were happily chatting, the couple at the opposite table noticed them. The young man asked the girl, is that Lee Di-wong? The girl stared at Kim Woo-chan and said with a playful smile, the red hair is so attractive. Lee Di-wong raised his hand to his chin with a serious expression. Have you heard about the serial killer? The Daeum District Special Team had to be put on red alert because of him. Kim Woo-chan sat with arms crossed and asked, isn't Screwdriver the murderer? They said he's the prime suspect. Lee Di-wong affirmed, it's not him. Kim Woo-chan paused at this statement from Lee Di-wong, then questioned him. How can you be so sure? Lee Di-wong took a sip of tea before explaining if it was a high-end sports car or some electronic device, he would be curious and try it out immediately. He's far from being a killer. Kim Woo-chan stuck to his point, saying, Screwdriver is a villain at the end of the day. He's still a madman, and his actions are unpredictable. Lee Di-wong took another sip of tea. Under his gaze, he analyzed, considering the recent cold-blooded serial killings, it's likely the work of a villain, but you think only villains are the crazy troublemakers. It can very well be a normal person. This made Kim Woo-chan pause and think. Lee Di-wong suddenly changed the subject with a smile. Anyway, your model sister, she's a first-year student at the school, right? Kim Woo-chan replied seriously. I set strict rules for her. Lee Di-wong sounded slightly disappointed. Oh, I see. Then he advised Kim Woo-chan, it's best to be cautious until catching the serial killer. Kim Woo-chan fell into deep thought. At the moment at AC Studio, the devices in the room are still operating at full capacity. The photographer directs the model. A little cute, a little bit arrogant. An Min-young and Kim Mae-won are posing for photos in various positions as requested by the photographer. The photographer happily says, good, well done. A moment later, they disband. Kim Mae-won walks outside. She takes out her phone to check the time and exclaims loudly, holy shit. It's already 7 o'clock. Was planning to buy some stuff before going home. Probably won't make it in time. I wanted to buy that limited edition bottle. She glances to the right and sees An Min-young standing there looking lost, perhaps waiting for someone with a sad expression. Kim Mae-won quickly approaches and greets, oh, Min-young, are you still here? An Min-young also greets, Nae-lun. Kim Mae-won looks at An Min-young with a puzzled look. Then An Min-young remains silent, then suddenly takes Kim Nae-lun's hand enthusiastically, suggesting, Nae-lun, let's go to the amusement park. Nae-lun hesitates a bit and asks, go now? An Min-young eagerly replies, yeah. It's been so long since I've had fun, let's go. Kim Mae-won still hesitates, saying, yeah, how long has it been? An Min-young kept pulling Kim Mae-won's hand and pleading, come on, let's go, just play a little bit. Kim Mae-won firmly refused. No, my brother set a curfew. An Min-young didn't give up. She looked at Kim Mae-won with sparkling eyes and begged, come on, just play a little bit. Under Min-young's expectation, Nae-won reluctantly agreed, saying, fine. Then the two of them walked away cheerfully. At the same time, a stranger appeared, standing in the shadows, watching the two young girls' figures with a creepy smile on his face. The scene shifted to Kwon Kang-woo's apartment building. Our main character was casually browsing Facebook when he came across a post with Lee Di-wong's picture and a caption. The serial killer will surely be caught. A special task force has been set up to reduce the fear of Dang District residents. Kwon Kang-woo sighed and said, 3 people have died. Moros asked him, what do you think about Screwdriver's proposal? Kwon Kang-woo replied, his proposal doesn't concern me, but this cold-blooded killer, I can't just sit idly by and do nothing about him. Moros had no further comment on the matter, remaining silent. Kwon Kang-woo took the mouse control. Clicking on the screen, he said, if we don't know the motive, it's very difficult to find the culprit. There is no information other than the fact that the murders all happened in different districts. He studied the strong crime locations on the map. Moros asked, what about the thing you received from Screwdriver? Kwon Kang-woo questioned in confusion. What thing? Then he remembered the conversation from that day. Screwdriver had given Kwon Kang-woo a smartphone. Kwon Kang-woo, with a suspicious expression, asked, why did you give me this? Screwdriver replied, we need a means of communication. I created it just for sending and receiving messages. There is no GPS tracker in it, so don't worry. Kwon Kang-woo bluntly refused. I don't need it. Screwdriver still cheerfully continued, I will also send you information about the murderer through this, and of course you can also text me anytime. I will always support you with full options, so make sure to catch the killer. That's the requirement. Kwon Kang-woo looked at the smartphone in his hand for a moment, then he pressed his finger on the screen, but his eyes seemed reluctant. Then he placed the phone on the ground, stood up angrily and said, I can't do it. I have my own dignity. How can I exchange information with a criminal? Moros asked in astonishment, where are you going? Kwon Kang-woo walked out of the room as he spoke. I can't sit still if my brain isn't working. At least my legs should be moving. At the same time at the public arcade, An Min-young and Kim Mae-won are busy catching stuffed animals. An Min-young cheers excitedly, saying, whoa, caught it. Just a little more and you'll have it. Kim Mae-won's face is focused as she tries to catch the bear with the claw, but just 2 seconds later the bear falls off. Min-young screams in disappointment, no. Kim Mae-won touches her head to the glass in front of her. An Min-young sadly says, too bad. Can't even catch one. Let's try again. Kim Mae-won replies, boring, but I have to go now. The two continue talking without noticing that there is an unmanned drone behind watching them. An Min-young asks in disappointment, really? It's not even 8 o'clock yet. The drone observes their every movement and conversation. Kim Mae-won angrily tells An Min-young, I told you, my annoying older brother set a curfew. Kim Mae-won's anger makes An Min-young a bit scared. She then looks at Kim Mae-won with a sad face and sparkling eyes. An Min-young tries to persuade her once more. Can't you stay a little longer? She then lowers her head, looking worried. Kim Ne-won asks, "What's wrong?" On Min-young hesitated for a moment and then recounted, "Actually, I have seen it." Min-young's words without beginning or end made Ne-won quite curious, so she asked, "What is it?" On Min-young continued, "You also know that a female classmate of ours was murdered a few days ago, right?" "I have seen it." This statement shocked Kim Ne-won, and she stammered as she asked Min-young, "Why, what?" On Min-young confided further, "I want to tell someone, but I am really scared. It feels like it will happen to me too." As she spoke, her whole body trembled, sweat poured out, and her eyes welled up with tears. Kim Ne-won panicked and asked, "Did he see you?" On Min-young nodded in fear. Kim Ne-won tightly held her best friend's hand and urgently said, "Now is not the time to talk. It's not too late. We should go to the police station immediately. I will go with you." Kim Ne-won pulled On Min-young to run quickly, saying as they ran, "Hurry. If the murderer has seen you, then both you and I are in danger." Suddenly, the door in front of them was gradually closing. By the time they reached it, the door had completely shut, and there was no way to open it. The light bulb also went out. Kim Ne-won shouted, "What happened? Why did the door close? Who turned off the lights?" Kim Ne-won looked down at the floor. Even though it was a bit dark and lacked light, she could still see clearly. It was a blood stain. A gruff voice echoed, "We meet again." Kim Ne-won and On Min-young turned around to look. A stream of blood was boiling and gushing out, its source unknown. The two girls trembled violently. On Min-young screamed loudly in fear, then had to cover her mouth with her hand. Kim Ne-won stood protectively in front, very scared, but still showing strength and courage. A monster, covered in blood, emerged from the pool of blood. He grinned wickedly and said, "Poor child." He was the B-rank villain, Blood Rain. At this moment, Kwon Kang-woo was standing on the rooftop, overlooking the entire city. Moro's not very pleased, spoke up, "What good does wandering around like this do?" Kwon Kang-woo replied coldly, "If you like, go home and complain." Moro said, "Even if I wanted to, I can't. I have to stay within a limited range beside you." Suddenly, the smartphone in Kwon Kang-woo's back pocket rang with a notification. Kwon Kang-woo quickly picked it up and looked at it, his face puzzled, saying, "What is this?" Moros asked, "Isn't that the phone Screwdriver gave you? Not someone leaving it out of his own dignity." Kwon Kang-woo received a letter from Screwdriver. He quickly opened it, but muttered, "If he sends something random, I will throw it away immediately." In the message were terrifying images of Kim Ne-won and On Young facing a serial killer. Kim Ne-won looked out the window, then shielded On Min-young with her hands, her face showing no fear, looking straight at the serial killer, and thought to herself, "He's a killer. He must be the one Min-young saw." On Min-young shivered, unable to think anymore, quietly asked, "Ne-won, what should we do now?" Ne-won remembered her stubborn older brother Kim Woo-chan had given her a bell, saying, "Take it." Kim Ne-won held it in her hand and asked in confusion, "What is this?" Kim Woo-chan replied, "An emergency bell." He then advised his sister, "Don't press it for fun. If you're in danger, press it and I will come find you immediately." Kim Ne-won discreetly pressed the button behind her. The bell emitted a red light, her face tense. Thinking to herself, "This is not a joke. Come quickly." Outside, it was getting dark, and from the outside, it looked like the public game store had closed because the lights were no longer on. Grade B villain Bloodrain spread his bloody hands and said, "You all look tired, such pitiful creatures. I will give you a gift, eternal sleep." He smirked with a sinister smile, his eyes shining as he looked at the two girls. Kim Ne-won shouted, "Shut up, you monster." Then she raised her middle finger in a disrespectful gesture and continued, "Eternal sleep seems fitting for you. Keep it for yourself." On Min-young stood behind, silent, afraid to make a sound. Bloodrain's expression seemed less joyful as he coldly said, "A noisy little brat," then slowly advanced towards the two girls. Sensing the danger, Kim Ne-won gritted her teeth and thought, "I need to stall until my brother arrives." She bravely asked the murderer, "Why? Why are you doing this?" The murderer paused, looking at the girl in front of him before responding with another question. Why ask such a strange question? Pursuing what you like also requires a reason, right? Hearing this, Kim Ne-won felt a bit disgusted and thought to herself, "What is he talking about? Truly, a sick individual." The murderer raised his hand to his mouth and stuck out his tongue to lick the blood still clinging to his fingertips. He cheerfully said, "However, I will answer your innocent question. The taste of fresh blood and the scattered pieces of flesh are the most wonderful things that exist in this world." The murderer's answer sent shivers down Kim Ne-won's spine. She quickly took off her backpack and threw it on the ground, shouting loudly, "Don't come any closer. I warn you. Take one more step and you're finished. My strong brother will be here any moment. He is very powerful. In just 3 seconds, he will finish you off." The murderer blood-drained smiled excitedly at the strong-willed girl Kim Nae-won. He raised his voice and said, "You are a daring little thing. Is your strong brother coming?" Kim Nae-won confidently affirmed, "Yes. If you're scared, you better run away." The murderer spread out his hands. His dark magic emanated. He laughed and said, "Then I wonder how your brother will react when he sees the bloodless corpse of his little sister." An Min-young and Kim Nae-won widened their eyes as they looked at his powerful magic bubbling up. The murderer, blood drain, continued, but first, then he released his magic straight towards the two girls. A beam of light passed through Kim Nae-won's eyes. This magic was not aimed at her. It deflected through her body and shot straight into An Min-young's abdomen, causing her to fly backwards and slide on the ground. The murderer's magic pierced through An Min-young's body. Blood splattered all over Kim Nae-won's face. An Min-young fell to the ground unconscious. Immediately, Kim Nae-won panicked and shouted loudly, "Min-young." She rushed to her friend and shook her desperately, calling out, "Min-young, wake up." "No, Min-young, An Min-young." The murderer blood-drained spoke, "Now it's your turn." Kim Nae-won trembled as she held Min-young close to her, her eyes filled with fear as she watched the killer approaching. He laughed excitedly and arrogantly said, "This is a sweet little gift for your brother." Kim Nae-won held Min-young tightly, closing her eyes in despair when suddenly a familiar voice rang out, "Son of a bitch." Kim Nae-won woke up abruptly, wondering if her brother Kim Woo-chan had arrived in time to save them. With renewed hope for survival, our hero Kwon Kang-woo appeared at this crucial moment. He flew towards the killer. Kim Nae-won stunned to see who it was. The murderer blood-drained seemed angry that someone had intervened. Kwon Kang-woo shouted, "The gift is for you." Then he quickly charged towards the killer at lightning speed. Kwon Kang-woo spread out his hand to unleash his power and then pushed all his strength to launch a straight right fist in his opponent's face. He shouted, "Taste it, sword of the night." The protagonist's sword technique was only inches away from the assassin. He quickly turned his head and leaned down successfully, avoiding Kwon Kang-woo's attack. The assassin blood-drained smiled excitedly, his eyes filled with challenge as he looked at Kwon Kang-woo. Kwon Kang-woo leaped up high, raising his hand to throw a punch. The assassin blood-drained, then spread out his bloody hand to defend. The two powerful forces clashed, causing everything in the space to shatter into pieces as a fierce wind swept through. Kwon Kang-woo continued his momentum, shouting loudly, "Bring it on." His technique turned the space into a dim battlefield filled with smoke and fire, but something wasn't quite right. He quickly looked to his left and right. The assassin blood-drained had both arms destroyed, his face showing signs of pain. He grunted and thought to himself, "Who is this cunning guy? A powerful brother who that girl called an evil person." Kim Nae-won stared at Kwon Kang-woo with curiosity, as she had never met the male lead before, and this was their first encounter. She wondered to herself, who is he? The arrogant look in blood-drained's eyes faded as he realized how powerful the male lead was. He gazed at Kwon Kang-woo intently and thought to himself, "I've never seen such skills before. Could he be the one who defeated Balater? And now he's watching me. How interesting." Thinking this, he smiled excitedly and confidently said, "Today, I will spare you all, but don't think it's over." Upon hearing this, Kwon Kang-woo furrowed his brows and blood-drain slowly disappeared into the blood. He threatened them, "You will die at my hands, a sweet death." Upon hearing this, Kim Nae-won shivered with fear, muttering, "Death." Not allowing the serial killer to escape so easily, Kwon Kang-woo quickly rushed forward, shouting, "Stop. Do you think you can escape?" He reached out to grasp the killer's body, but it was too late. All that was left was a drop of blood floating in the air before crystallizing into a light and disappearing under the sticky, blood-stained floor. Kwon Kang-woo didn't have time to do anything. He sighed and said regretfully in annoyance, "Damn, he's escaped." Kim Nae-won called out to Kwon Kang-woo, "Hey, don't go. I need your help." Upon hearing this, the male lead stopped and turned back to look at Kim Nae-won, her eyes sparkling with tears, looking pitiful. She earnestly pleaded with Kwon Kang-woo, "Please save my friend, please." In another development, Kim Woo-chan hurriedly rode his car with Lee Dee-wong driving. After receiving a distress signal from his younger sister, he asked with some doubt, "A distress signal? Could she have pressed it by mistake?" Kim Woo-chan, feeling anxious and uneasy in the back seat, replied, "If so, she would have called me back. She wouldn't joke about things like that." Lee Dee-wong replied, "I understand. I've also informed the police in that area. They should be on their way." Kim Woo-chan looked at his sister Kim Nae-won's location on the phone and prayed in his heart, "I hope she's safe." A moment later, at the public game store, the unmanned drone, unaware of its owner, continued to follow and monitor them. Kwon Kang-woo called for an ambulance for help, saying, "There is a person seriously injured here. Please send an ambulance." Please come as quickly as possible. Kang-woo cupped the phone, being quite knowledgeable in this field. He said to Kim Ne-won, the ambulance is on the way. We should stop the bleeding before they arrive. Do you have a bandage or something to wrap the wound with? Kim Ne-won hesitated and said, yes. Kang-woo continued, something with good elasticity. Kim Ne-won handed a brown and white sock to Kang-woo. He held it in his hand and asked Kim Ne-won in confusion, what is this? Kim Ne-won replied, a sock. It has good elasticity. After that, Kang-woo wrapped the sock around On Min-young's wound. Then he ordered Moro's check on her condition. Kim Ne-won, thinking the protagonist was talking to her, looked puzzled. Moro's, with a hesitant expression, said, you asked me to check on her wound. It's simple. No need for divine vision. The wound is not life-threatening. Kang-woo breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's a relief. Kim Ne-won, with a worried expression, asked, will Min-young be okay? Kang-woo replied, if she receives timely treatment, she will be fine. Kim Ne-won exclaimed, really? Kang-woo smiled and said, they will arrive soon. Just then, the sound of brakes echoed, and both of them turned to look. Kang-woo immediately left without saying a word. Kim Ne-won exclaimed, I have done the first aid. The rest will be taken care of by the doctor. Thank you. You can go now. Ne-won watched the shadow of Kang-woo with a bit of regret in her heart. Suddenly, the male lead turned back to look at Kim Ne-won and coldly said, of course I have to go search for the villain who ran away. A black smoke spread through the space. Kim Ne-won looked bewildered. Then she seemed quite shocked at the speed of the male lead. He quickly jumped from one building to another effortlessly, so fast that only a flash of light was seen before her eyes. Moro said, those two kids are lucky. If you hadn't arrived in time, they wouldn't have been killed. Kang-woo frowned and looked to the left, then he and Moro's continued to chase the murderer. Kang-woo grumbled, that annoying thing has been bothering me all this time. What's that? He and Moro's turned back to see what it was. Turns out it was a drone monitoring them every step of the way. In the distance, Crow signaled with his hand whistle. Kang-woo looked up in surprise at Crow, standing proudly and arrogantly smiling. He said, we meet again. Do you remember me? It's so annoying. This annoyance is enough to make me kill you. Kang-woo looked at Crow and quietly thought in his heart the person from earlier. It turns out that the unmanned plane is controlled by Screwdriver. He is observing the entire conversation of the two of them. Kang-woo replied, I just met you a few hours ago. How can I forget quickly? Crow smiled and said, thank you for remembering me. Then she stepped closer and continued, how I introduced myself yet? I am Raven, a name that suits me well, right? And you are. Kang-woo bluntly replied, I have no name. Raven laughed and asked, so you don't have a name or suitable nickname? Kang-woo didn't beat around the bush. He focused on the issue. Why bother about those names? Get to the main topic. Raven praised the male protagonist. Indeed, a unique individual. She looked up at the unmanned plane and explained, Screwdriver uses these machines to hunt down the murderer in places where he can roam freely. Hearing that, Kang-woo immediately asked, how do people know the killer's location through it? Raven replied, that's right. Thanks to it, we know who the killer is. Kang-woo was slightly surprised and asked further, do you know the killer? Raven presented the information she had gathered. He is Bloodrain. He wanders all over this country and carries out gruesome murders. He is a truly unpleasant person. I have long suspected him as the killer, but he is really hard to track, so I can't be sure anymore. There are also some internal issues. Forget what I just said, or I will kill you with a skewer. Kang-woo thought to himself, this woman is truly. Raven gave a kiss to the unmanned drone, inadvertently handing it to Screwdriver, but he was busy searching for something under the table. He said, where is the popcorn? I remember I put it around here somewhere. Raven also continued to speak to Kang-woo, but I don't want to do anything to upset Screwdriver. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and exclaimed, then took out a cheerful blue box and said, Screwdriver told me to give this to you. He said he would explain everything when the deal is done. She then threw the box to Kang-woo and told him to take it. The male lead held the box in his hand, observing it, and asked, what is this? Raven replied, a reward is promised for you. Kang-woo opened it, and inside were 3 magical stones shining brightly, marveled silently thinking, magic stones, all the best kind. Early the next morning, news of the murder spread everywhere. The TV was broadcasting live at the public game store. Police surrounded the area. People gathered to watch. The reporter said, around 8 p.m. last night, the suspected serial killer struck again. Fortunately, psychers arrived at the scene immediately after being informed of the situation. There were no casualties. A high school girl is being treated at the hospital. Luckily, the injury is not life-threatening. The male lead's sister, Kwon Yuri, was also listening to the news just as the male lead walked out of the room. Kwon Yuri sighed in relief and said, "Thank goodness." Seeing her sister focused on watching, the male lead said nothing and just left the house. Hearing a door creaking, Kwon Yuri turned around to see her younger brother, dressed neatly with a school bag. She asked, "Are you going to school?" Kang-woo replied, "Yes." Kang-woo grimaced and replied, "Yes, I know." On the way to school, he thought to himself, "I've had Kang-woo's body for a while now. I need to become stronger to seek revenge on Lampas, but I don't know how much I can trust this strange trial tree. The agreement I made with the villains of the evil district is also making me tense." He remembered the events of last night after receiving 3 magical stones from Raven's hand. Kang-woo confirmed, "She gave me the 3 highest grade magical stones." The magical stones emitted sparkling light like crystals. He took one out to look at and asked, "And this is just a part of the deal, right?" Raven smiled and asked back, "Not enough." Kang-woo honestly replied, "It's a bit too much." Raven raised her chin and said, "I think so too, but that guy is very powerful. With his current magic strength, you won't be able to defeat him. It's okay, besides, there is a GPS monitoring device created by Screwdriver. You can use it when needed. Screwdriver has created a list of places where blood rain has appeared. Open the file to see. To be honest, I don't have much faith in you. But if you disappoint Screwdriver, you understand, right?" With that, she gave a strange smile and looked at Kang-woo. Those words kept echoing in the main character's head, causing him to rack his brains. Kang-woo was walking and wondering to himself, what are they up to? Suddenly, Moros noticed that this road seemed unfamiliar and said to him, "This is not the way to school." Kang-woo coldly replied, "I have a place to go." Moros sighed and said, "He's skipping school." The main character analyzed the situation based on the information gathered and the data sent by Screwdriver. Seoi High School is a very interesting place. The 2 girls who were followed by the villain yesterday also attend Seoi High School. There must be a lead around here. Moros asked the main character, "Are you planning to search around this area and ask about him?" Kang-woo answered, "If necessary, we have to do it. But there is something that is bothering me. The pink-haired girl from yesterday is the younger sister of Psyker, a trainee in our school, Kim Woo-chan. I have to call to ask for leave first." Moros remained silent. Kang-woo dialed the homeroom teacher's number. Pretending to have a heavy cold, he said, "This is Kang-woo. I have a pretty bad cold, so I need to rest at home today." The scene changed to the city hospital. Kim Woo-chan sat slumped on a chair outside the hospital room. Lee Di-wong pressed an iced coffee cup against his face and said, "Kim Woo-chan, you stayed up all night, didn't you?" Kim Woo-chan greeted, "Sunbae." Lee Di-wong sat down and sipped his coffee before asking, "How is Nate 1?" Kim Woo-chan replied with a sad face, "The little one just fell asleep." He then asked, "Have you checked the crime scene report?" Lee Di-wong responded, "I have. It's difficult to check the surveillance camera footage as they have been destroyed, but from the report, it is easy to identify the murderer as Bloodrain. According to Bloodrain's profile, he drains the victim's blood without damaging the body, but the bodies found in Deng District were all dismembered, so we have ruled him out as a suspect. It's unbelievable that it's him." Lee Ji-wong frowned and put his hand on his face in disbelief of being led astray by the suspect. Then he sighed and sat back with Kim Woo-chan. Kim Woo-chan asked, "Did the villain save Na-won and Min Young?" Lee Di-wong continued, "It seems like it was him the last time." Kim Woo-chan fell into deep thought. He recounted his younger sister's story. Na-won had said he was a savior. If he was a villain, he should have been a crazy lunatic. But he saved everyone, including his sister. What exactly is going on? Lee Di-wong took a sip of coffee and sighed. "That's what I'm thinking too. He even fought with Balatter. He's some kind of monster." Kim Woo-chan held the steaming cup of coffee in his hand, deep in thought. At the high school area in Seoul, students were happily leaving school. Kang-woo stood outside the convenience store, observing them for anything suspicious. 2 girls were chatting happily. Wow, it really happened. Kang-woo glanced towards the end of the street. Moros whispered to him, "You have come a long way, skipping school and coming here." Then he entered the convenience store, casually taking out a can of Coca-Cola to pay. The 2 girls buying items were chatting with the handsome cashier. "Are you a model?" This question made the young man embarrassed, and he replied, "No, I told you, I'm just a normal student." The girl, not at all embarrassed, looked at the cashier with sparkling eyes and confidently said, "You're so handsome. What school do you go to high?" The convenience store employee asked, "Why do you want to know that?" At that moment, our main character confidently spoke up, "I want to take this." His cold eyes stared at the cashier, and the employee replied, "Of course, I'll print the receipt for you right away." He laughed cheerfully and said, "Handsome and friendly, meeting the standards of all the ladies." Raven was walking back after shopping a lot when she heard a loud voice of a delivery person trying to get her attention. Special deal for a pair of phones here. Raven wasted no time and bought 2 phones in excitement, saying, "The first picture on the phone will be of me and screwdrivers." Raven excitedly handed the phone to Screwdrivers as a gift, saying, "This is for you." Screwdrivers didn't look too pleased, saying, "A gift? I already have a phone," but reluctantly accepted it. At that moment, Raven coincidentally saw Kwon Kang-woo on the street holding a phone identical to hers. Raven furrowed her brows angrily and shouted, "Get lost!" Kwon Kang-woo looked at the pictures in the phone, all of which were of her, making Raven curious and thinking to herself, "What is going on?" Back at the convenience store, the staff was scanning the barcode on a Coca-Cola can for Kwon Kang-woo to pay. After checking out, the staff said the total is 3,200 won. The main character opened his wallet to get the money, but noticed a book on the table that caught his eye. The book's cover read The Bride of Corinth. Kwon Kang-woo kept staring without moving his eyes. The young man serving was giving a bag to Kwon Kang-woo. At this time, an older man walked into the store and asked the staff, "Do you have scrap paper?" The staff replied, "Yes, please wait a moment while I get it for you." The man happily bought the scrap paper and said, "Thank you." The cashier guy carried a stack of cardboard sheets from the counter, but accidentally bumped into Kwon Kang-woo's shoulder. Moros glanced at the staff. The cashier quickly apologized to the main character. "I'm sorry." He politely took the stack of cardboard sheets out to the man's car buying scrap paper. Kwon Kang-woo followed his every move. After that, he quietly left the convenience store, walking a short distance. Moros whispered in his ear, "Cassian, there's something we need to talk about." Kwon Kang-woo immediately interjected, "He's the villain, isn't he?" This startled Moros. Kwon Kang-woo said, "I knew it when I looked into his miserable eyes." Moros hesitantly speculated, "But I'm not sure if it's blood drain." Kwon Kang-woo thought back to the book on the counter earlier, The Bride of Corinth. He said, "It's a classic vampire novel." He remembered the last words he said to him yesterday. "You will enjoy a sweet death. You will die in my arms. You will die in my arms." I've heard this somewhere before. It's a line from a novel. Moros said, "It's surprising that you remember things like that." Kwon Kang-woo opened a can of Coke and said, "I've read a few books at the orphanage." Then he took a sip, feeling refreshed, wiped his mouth with his hand, and arrogantly said, "Let's quickly go see the target we're aiming for, and see if it's the one." Kwon Kang-woo and Moros returned to the convenience store. The handsome cashier was finishing his shift, walking and tapping on his phone. The main character quickly followed, crossing large and small streets, but still not seeing the destination. Moros noticed something unusual, saying, "This isn't the way to the Seoul Girls' High School." Kwon Kang-woo thought to himself, "Where is this guy going?" At that moment, they encountered a scrap paper collector crossing the street. However, a car was speeding uncontrollably towards them. The old scrap paper collector looked to his left in shock and froze. His mind seemed to be elsewhere. Kwon Kang-woo quickly rushed towards the old man, embraced him, and ran away from the oncoming car, which then stopped. The driver stepped out of the car in panic, asking, "Are you okay, sir?" The old scrap paper collector was stunned, his body still trembling and breathing heavily. Kwon Kang-woo suddenly remembered. He turned around and saw no trace of the cashier anymore. He looked around angrily. Then he and Moros walked behind Seaway High School, where it was deserted with no one around. Moros said to the main character, "I can't believe you chose a place like this for the transformation." Kwon Kang-woo observed the building structure around and said, "There's no roof around your access, so we have to use this first." He then swallowed a magic stone. His body started to change. A beam of light radiated from him. Kwon Kang-woo ordered Moros, "Moros, check the information with your divine eye." The system screen displayed the main character's profile. Villain Kwon Kang-woo, special attribute, ability to transform into a disaster-level villain, dark attribute, activate the transformation of the wrathful shadow sword, self-healing main skill of shadow image, hidden skill, extract magic stone magic index 470. Seeing this information, Kwon Kang-woo was surprised. He said, "I have 2 additional skills, invisibility and illusion." Moros added, "Increasing the magic points has helped develop the skills you possess." Kwon Kang-woo raised his eyebrows in amazement and asked, "Just by increasing the magic points, you get new skills." He thought to himself, "When I was still a psyker, I could only be strong through training." Looking at the last line, the male lead hurriedly said, "The magic points are only 470. Why is that? I used 3 magic stones. Why do I only get 120 points?" Moros explained, "Your body may have developed resistance to magic crystals. Next time you use another magic stone, it will decrease further. After a while, you will only see a few small changes." Kwon Kang-woo also understood, if someone becomes stronger only through magic stones, he wouldn't have given it to me. He put his hand on his chin and thought, it means I can't rely solely on magic stones to become stronger. I should consider other methods like training or something. Kang-woo ordered Moro's, show me blood drain stats. Moro sighed, I'd used it twice today. If I use it a third time then, without Moro's finishing the sentence, Kang-woo interjected. I know. The system screen displayed information about the villain blood drain, special attribute physical enhancement, activate mental attributes, blood sword, charming threat, magic points 1000. Kang-woo glanced over for a moment and asked, is it bloodlust, the one we saw yesterday, his attributes related to the mind? Moro's replied, yes, his attributes are all related to mind control. Kang-woo continued, hypnosis, this is not easy at all. The scene shifted to the city's central hospital. At this time, there was no one on the waiting seats, only nurses and doctors coming in and out to take care of the patients. Bloodstains on the floor. This was the trace of the serial killer, Blood Rain. He had hypnotized the nurses and doctors in the hospital. Become my loyal followers, bring your children here. A few nurses were huddled together, chatting outside Min Young's hospital room. The police were guarding strictly to prevent the killer from taking action. Min Young was still unconscious on the hospital bed with no sign of waking up. Kim Nae-won sat on a chair next to the bed, searching for information and images of the villain on Google to find out who the hero was yesterday and what his background was like. Nae-won rested her chin on her hand with a sad look, thinking to herself, none of them is him. Who is he? Suddenly, a few doctors and nurses entered Min Young's room and said, Kim Nae-won, it's time for Min Young to undergo some health tests. Kim Nae-won looked up and asked, what now? The doctor in the white coat said gravely, it's really important. If you can replace the guardian and accompany her, it would be great. Kim Nae-won hesitated and said, I. The old doctor smiled with a very trustworthy face, while outside Seoul School, Kang-woo was testing his power after eating 3 magic stones. His body emitted a dark blue light. He relentlessly attacked the wall in front of him, then turned into a black airstream that flew through the skyscrapers. At this moment, the male lead thought to himself, I can combine invisibility and illusions and use them together. Moro's interrupted him. That's not a good idea. Kang-woo landed on the rooftop of a building. Moro's advised him, on the way here, I noticed the strong use of your magic. Be more careful with it. Kang-woo grumbled, you're nagging again. The phone screen issued a red alert about the location of the villain blood drain. Kang-woo opened the phone and said, it seems so. I also think it is a bit too much. But that damn blood drain, he is really heading towards the hospital, where that girl was admitted yesterday. Luckily, I quickly attached the keeps to him. He remembered the image of the brave girl with pink hair from yesterday. Kang-woo immediately took off flying, shouting to Moro's, hurry up. At the same time, Nae-won and Min Young were being led down to the parking garage by 3 doctors controlled by the villain blood drain. Kim Nae-won sensed something was wrong and asked, excuse me, why are you putting the patient in the ambulance without checking their health first? As she spoke, she slowly stepped back. The doctor in a white coat replied, this is a very important test that cannot be done at the hospital. Nae-won still didn't understand, suspiciously asking, what you mean? Suddenly, a loud voice came from behind, because this is a test of loyalty. Nae-won quickly turned around and saw none other than the serial killer blood drain. He gave a sinister smile and greeted Kim Nae-won. Nice to meet you again. You will die in my arms. Kim Nae-won widened her eyes, staring at the killer, and screamed to the doctors and nurses in front, villain, run fast. But they all remained unresponsive, turning to look at Nae-won with eyes as red as blood. All 3 of them had been mesmerized by the villain. He smirked and said, they only follow my orders. Then he slowly approached where Nae-won stood, touching her chin with his finger and threatening, I can turn you into an obedient puppet like them, but it won't work. Nae-won pressed the danger signal button repeatedly to alert her brother. The villain praised her. Your willpower is strong. You have overcome the instinct of fear and horror in humans. You are very suitable to be my bride. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out, get your hands off her, son of a bitch. The villain looked around in confusion, asking, who? Kim Nae-won lay down as I counted to 3. Villain blood drain clenched his teeth in anger, secretly thinking, no way, it's that scumbag. The mysterious figure counted to 3. Kim Nae-won immediately bowed down to the ground. Surely, everyone could guess who that mysterious figure was. Appearing in a critical moment can only be our male lead, Kang-woo. He rushed out from the darkness and landed a straight kick to the face of villain blood drain, causing him to slide on the ground and fly tens of meters away. He immediately raised both hands in defense. Kang-woo continued to raise his leg, kicking villain blood drain in the chest, causing him to fly backwards and leave a mark on the wall. The ground cracked and shattered. The villain blood drain gritted his teeth and said loudly, damn it, he's back again. Kang-woo coldly said, "This is just the beginning." He clenched his fist. The villain's eyes widened in slight horror. Our protagonist punched fiercely at the villain, making him unable to dodge in time. The whole space seemed to shake, filled with smoke and dust. The villain, bludgeoning, gritted his teeth in anger, started to get up, roaring fiercely, shouting, "Blood sword!" Using magic to attack Kang-woo directly, the protagonist agilely dodged the villain's attack. Kang-woo shouted loudly, "Die!" Once again taking the initiative, he pinned the villain against the wall with his foot. Two people came face to face. The villain Bloodrain smirked with a sinister smile, staring at the male lead, using his fiery red eyes to try to hypnotize him. The male lead confidently said, "I've got you now." He covered the villain's cool red eyes with his hand, making him angry and exclaiming, "How dare you!" A powerful attack shook the hospital basement, giving Kang-woo the opportunity to grab the villain and slam him to the ground with all his strength. Kang-woo stated, "It seems like you have been satisfied with your vile desires. Now it's time to pay the price." The villain suddenly grinned devilishly as Kim Nae-won shivered and asked, "Are you finding this amusing?" The villain replied, "Of course, why shouldn't I be happy? You will never defeat me because I am that kind of being." Before Kang-woo could respond angrily, the villain disappeared right in front of him. Before this situation, which made Kang-woo have to look in astonishment, just a blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace, leaving only the debris in front of Kang-woo. In his head, Kang-woo silently thought, "This guy's skills are really annoying. Physical attacks are useless when he turns into blood. Shit, if I can still use fire magic, then he's done for." At this moment, Kang-woo regained his composure. He turned around and quietly asked himself, where did he run to? At the same time, the doctor, puzzled, asked, "Why am I in the parking lot?" Kim Nae-won asked, "Is everyone okay?" Kang-woo glanced at Kim Nae-won's group with fear, saying, "The hypnosis spell has no effect now." Kang-woo raised his voice. "Hey, doctor and nurses, move the patient to a safe place." The doctor startled and exclaimed, "Monster." After speaking, Kang-woo immediately left like a gust of wind. Kim Nae-won hurriedly shouted, "Wait!" Before she could finish, Kang-woo disappeared, leaving Kim Nae-won extremely confused. On the other side, Kang-woo was frantically running forward, thinking, "He can't have gone far, we have to catch up with him quickly." At the same time, a red-haired man was also running frantically. As they approached the junction in the hospital basement, Kang-woo and Lee Dee-wong's group came face to face. This unexpected encounter caused Kang-woo to quickly break. Lee Dee-wong, with an annoyed expression, yelled, "Monster!" Faced with this situation, Kang-woo was bewildered and didn't know what was happening, while Kim Woo-chan exclaimed in amazement, staring intently and silently whispering, "That is." The man had barely recovered his senses. Lee Dee-wong quickly drew his sword, then threw it forcefully towards Cassian. On the other side, Kang-woo calmly countered the move, saying, "Is this all you have to stop me? Step aside and do not obstruct my path." Kang-woo used his hand to deflect Lee Dee-wong's sword back. In no time, Lee Dee-wong regained his sword, shouting, "Kim Woo-chan, why are you standing there like a statue?" At this moment, Kim Woo-chan thought to himself, Nae-won said he is the one who saved the little girl. In Kim Woo-chan's mind was the image of a loved one's funeral, a loud call, awakening him. Kim Woo-chan's sharp, fiery gaze turned towards Kang-woo, resolutely stating evil beings must be eradicated. As soon as he finished speaking, Kim Woo-chan used his fire magic to strike at Kang-woo, who quickly dodged the attack and countered with his own power. Using his dark shadow sword to dispel Kim Woo-chan's fire magic, Lee Dee-wong continued to attack from behind, causing Kang-woo to sigh in frustration. "Damn it, this is really annoying." Sensing the unfavorable situation, Kang-woo widened his eyes to observe. It turns out that Lee Dee-wong used the thunder magic to secretly attack Kang-woo. Fortunately, Kang-woo quickly dodged the blow to save his life, but his stomach was injured. Lee Dee-wong shouted loudly, "Now give him a finishing blow." After saying that, Kim Woo-chan immediately rushed forward like a gust of wind, his eyes full of resentment looking at Kang-woo. Suddenly, the image of Kim Nae-won appeared and echoed in his mind the words, "He saved me." At this moment, Kim Woo-chan lost his composure and Kang-woo noticed something unusual about Kim Woo-chan. Then he glanced at a small alley not far away, and in that moment, Kang-woo seized the opportunity and ran away immediately. In no time, Kang-woo successfully escaped, making Lee Dee-wong angry and saying, "Kim Woo-chan, where is your mind wandering?" Kim Woo-chan panicked and quickly replied, "I'm sorry." Lee Di-wong carried the sword on his shoulder and continued, "Today you seem like a lost soul." Returning to the parking lot in Alley B, Lee Di-wong drew his sword and said, "What just happened there?" It felt like he vanished along with the darkness. "A dark skill. The first time I have seen something like that. How should we report this?" Seeing Kim Woo-chan looking like a lost soul, Lee Di-wong approached and placed a hand on his shoulder, comforting him. "Hey, stop blaming yourself. What are you doing standing here? Go take care of your sister." Kim Woo-chan stood contemplatively, without responding. Then he hesitated before saying, "Oh, okay." Despite feeling truly uncomfortable, we had lost track of those two individuals. A man dragging himself along the road, silently complaining, "Damn, my throat is dry. That bastard has messed everything up." The sun was slowly setting, his face scratched as he continued to sigh. Reaching the end of the street, he suddenly noticed something. His mouth twisted into a sinister smile, looking up at a club and exclaimed, "This place looks very appealing to quench my thirst." Venturing inside, multicolored lights sparkled, music filled the lively atmosphere. Among the crowd, a girl with pink hair spotted the man embracing her from behind. She exclaimed in surprise, "Your clothes have blood on them. Are you injured somewhere, handsome guy?" Calmly, he replied, "No, I'm just thirsty." The polite girl with pink hair replied, "Thirsty? Let me buy you something then." Suddenly, his voice became terrifying, "But I only want something with a truly enticing taste." After a while, on the road, a car was speeding by. At the same time, there was news that a massacre had occurred at the Red Juice Club, Deng District, number 3 Street, Gay area. A criminal identified as Blood Rain was causing panic among the people. Upon hearing this information, Lee Di-wong exclaimed angrily, "Damn, that scoundrel is really out of his mind." Kim Woo-chan, curious, asked, "What's going on?" Lee Di-wong explained further, "Blood Rain is terrorizing the people again. I don't know how many times it's been now." After hearing these words, Kim Woo-chan fell into silent contemplation. Before long, Kim Woo-chan arrived at the hospital to visit his younger sister. Kim Woo-chan called out loudly, "Kim Mae-won, are you okay?" Kim Mae-won turned her head and said, "Brother." Kim Woo-chan hurried over and asked, "Are you injured?" Kim Mae-won calmly replied, "That person saved me." These words surprised Kim Woo-chan, who exclaimed, "What?" Kim Mae-won continued in a low voice, "The person who saved me before." Upon hearing this, Kim Woo-chan seemed to understand everything. Somewhere on a street, a car was speeding, while in a small alley the night had fallen and the wound on Kwon Kang-woo's body kept bleeding. Kwon Kang-woo leaned against the wall and sighed. Moro said, "Thankfully, it's not a serious wound, not at all like you." Kwon Kang-woo, confused, turned to look at Moros and asked, "Not like me?" Moros explained further, "You fight very differently when facing a villain. You go easy on them, because they're psychers." Upon hearing this, Kwon Kang-woo looked up at the sky, contemplating, and said, "It won't be like that anymore, because my enemies are not just villains." Moros looked at the wound on Kwon Kang-woo's waist and said, "The wound is almost healed." Suddenly, something shiny caught Kwon Kang-woo's attention. He held something in his hand and curiously asked, "What is this?" At the same time, the system sent a signal to display on the screen an image of someone injured lying in a pool of blood. Next to them, a woman in fear was hiding under a table with her hands covering her head. At the same time, Lee Di-wong and Kim Woo-chan arrived at the scene, where Blood Rain was calmly sitting on a chair drinking blood. He said with satisfaction, "Finally, I feel a little restored and satisfied." Lee Di-wong got angry and shouted, "You bastard, you're insane." Blood Rain calmly replied, "Quiet now, I don't want my recovery time to be interrupted." Lee Di-wong noticed the terrified woman sitting on the ground, trembling in fear. Then he glanced over at the body lying in a pool of blood. Lee Di-wong said, "We will rescue the survivors and then capture him." At the same time, Blood Rain finished drinking. He immediately set the blood glass on the ground and kept laughing. The recovery time has passed. The power of blood has returned. As soon as he finished speaking, Block Zen immediately attacked Lee Di-wong and Kim Woo-chan. Seeing the situation was not good, Lee Di-wong and Kim Woo-chan quickly observed the situation. Lee Di-wong quickly drew the sword from his body to prepare for the next move. Lee Di-wong ran towards Blood Rain to strengthen his power. Kim Woo-chan chased after to support. Kim Woo-chan used his fire abilities. With a fierce gaze, he stared at Blood Rain. Suddenly, Lee Di-wong shouted loudly, "Kim Woo-chan, stop! Using fire will endanger the hostages trapped in the fire." Hearing these words, Kim Woo-chan looked startled. Blood Rain scoffed and said, "Still concerned about others, huh?" Suddenly, Lee Di-wong became more tensed. As Blood Rain was about to attack him, he shouted, "Take care of yourself." In that moment, Lee Di-wong was knocked away by him.